Chapter 61. The second fear died in hail of blaster bolts. This one was not like the others. Avaryss realized that she had seen this one before. This one was horribly scarred, and wore a full hood and cloak as a result. It was the same Darth Fear that had contacted her after her first visit to Alderaan all those years ago. Back then, Fear had been injured in an attempt on his life by Darth Tarek. His men had all died, and he ended up horribly scarred, left with a raspy voice and wheezy breath. Weeks had passed, and in that time, he had returned showing no signs of his previous injuries. She had always assumed that Fear had healed himself, that through the dark side and medical science he had restored himself to full power, but now she realized that had been a lie. Fear had understood the need for secrecy, to hide his doubles, so he had let this one play the role for a short time, perhaps to show that he had the power to survive even the most lethal of attacks. From the state this double was in, that was not the case at all. He had been confined to a medical chair, breathing Kolto-enhanced air. His pain radiated outward, and with it, a strong dark side presence, but the damage had been done, and not even replaced with rudimentary cybernetics. The former was understandable, the latter was a mistake. It left him weak, vulnerable. Why Fear had even kept this one alive she could not guess. He didn't even have a lightsaber. 2 Sith guards had protected his room, but they were no match for Avi. She cut them down with ease, their force powers no match for the strength of a Dark Lord of the Sith. The Fear thing had turned to face her. "So, my fellows are dead," he rasped. "I warned them that you would not yield quietly, that we should." He reached out, trying to freeze her as Fear had done so many times during her apprenticeship. He also tried to blast her with force lightning. She blocked both attacks, and as she resisted, threw him back into his chair, sending it slamming hard against the back wall. He struck the back of his head. His force shield saved him from fatal injury, but he had been left dazed. Avaryss sent a blast of force lightning into the chair, making him jump and twitch. Before she could finish him off with her blade, Varric stepped up and opened fire. The Fear double, in his weakened state, offered no defense. Blaster bolts slammed into his chest. 5 shots in all, and each one punctuated by a name snarl from Varric's lips. He fired again and again, emptying the blaster into the Fear look-alike. Avi said nothing. She simply watched, and smiled. What she was sensing from her brother. She approved. When he was done, he stood there, breathing heavily, his breath hissing through the faceplate of his mask. "A most degrading ending," she purred. "Well done, Rick, well done indeed." He lowered his weapon, the barrel still smoking, his eyes transfixed on the dead double. I enjoyed that," he remarked. "I can't imagine why," Avaryss said dryly, a wicked smirk on her face. If her brother was amused, it didn't show. She felt revulsion through the force. He sheathed his blaster and looked down at his gauntleted hands, rubbing his fingers together, feeling the blood that he had just spilled, blood that wasn't there. "What have I become?" he murmured. What am I now?" The question surprised Avaryss. This was new. Varric had risen above simply being one of her experiments. He had survived things that he should not have. It was for that reason, and their history, that she had chosen to relent, and led him back into her service. "You are still a soldier," she reminded him. "You are one of my soldiers, and soon, you will reap the rewards of that service." A soldier destroys his enemies. I've always understood that, accepted that. He shook his head, his breath wheezing through his mask. I never enjoyed taking life. It was simply what was expected of me, my duty. The fact that I can now enjoy that, I don't like it. I don't want it." She frowned at his words. "You have outgrown what you were," she reminded him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Don't you see, Rick? You have left mundane humanity behind. You are something more now, a creature of the dark side, like me, like Zen." She chuckled. "You stand with your superiors now." His hands clenched into fists. "I'm a monster. You should have left me under Sadie's influence. You should have killed me when I betrayed you." The Dark Lord's lips became a grim line. Should she have killed him back then? Probably. Yet, it was not mercy that stayed her hand. She had been furious at his betrayal, and at the time, death had seemed too easy and too quick. No, she had wanted him to suffer. Yet, now, that suffering was not as sweet as it should be. Beric had returned to his senses. She was smart enough not to admit her reasons behind his transformation. She still found him useful. She decided to play the good sister. Avaryss turned him to face her, her finger touching the faceplate of his mask. It made him look more insectoid than man, but she knew what was underneath. She could sense what was underneath. She gave him a reassuring look. Don't worry, we can fix this. I can fix this. What was done to you can be undone. I can give you a new body, if you desire one. I saved genetic samples of yours, just in case. I can give you back what was taken. As she said the words, she realized something. Had fear not done the same with her? Bliss and jeer existed because her late master had taken similar precautions. She didn't entirely like the symmetry of that fact. I'm more like fear than I like to think. He was my master. He shaped me the way I think. Again, she didn't entirely like that. Neither did Beric. Apparently, he remained angry and morose. You think fixing this body will change anything? It doesn't change what has been done to my spirit. Even if I had a perfect human body, I would still be this. But you will have the chance to be happy, she reminded him, trying to shake him from this funk. You will have Zen, and you will have your daughter. What you have done here, in this moment, has convinced me. I will contact HK. I will have him bring little Maya to Sanctuary Base. You and Zen will be reunited with your child. You will have the chance to be a family. And what kind of example will I set for my child? What kind of father will I be? The best one you can be, she replied. He shook his head. Sadi destroyed me when she got into my head. I understand that now. Beric looked down at his hands. I'm a monster, he hissed, and looked at Avi. We are both monsters, Kira, he said. We are damned. We belong in hell. Avaryss sneered. I tasted death once already. I will not go so easily or quickly into it again. The ritual that put me in this shell freed me from that. I'm not so quick to simply surrender all that I've gained. I have a second chance, free of fear and Tarek's games and traps. If I'm damned, so be it. If I belong in hell, this galaxy will become hell, and I will rule over it. The leader that this wretched galaxy deserves. She took a step back, let the glamour fall away for a moment, let him see her true face. The one she had claimed from the Jedi fool. If I'm a monster, so be it. It is only part of the equation that is me. What I am, Beric, is a creature of the dark side, and the next empress of this galaxy. She shook her head. Our enemies will call us monsters because we are capable of doing what they only dream. Power without guilt, to conquer without mercy, to destroy those that are threats without thought of consequence. We do horrible things so the mundane in the galaxy don't. Let them hate us, we will make their lives better, free of choice, and the illusion of freedom. They will fear and hate us for it, but they will bend the knee? They will bend the knee or we will destroy them. Don't you see how evil that is? He asked. She snorted. Evil is a point of view, Rick. It is something made up by the mundane because they lack the power or will to do what is necessary. She glared at him. Depression will not serve you, or me. If you must hate yourself, that is fine, draw on that, and use it to drive you forward to a better world. But I have no use for self-pity. Snap out of it. Your lady and your daughter need you, and so do I. He held her gaze. She could feel his emotions roiling. Part of him almost wanted to turn his blaster on himself, but his soldier's duty and honor would not let that come to pass. He knew who he belonged to. He was her humble dog. He would not let her down. As you say, sister, he said finally. She smiled and restored the glamour. Soon she would be able to rid herself of it. The key was so close, and their final victory almost at hand. She just needed to be patient for a bit longer. Everything was falling into place. Her communicator beeped, and she answered it. It was Finn, warning them of the imminent arrival of the Zakuul. They didn't have much time. A half hour, maybe less. Yet, she could not leave, not until the last of Fear's doubles lay dead. She would not have one popping up again, or worse, creating more to bedevil her reign. Go help the others, Rick. I will inform Zen to meet with you. Help her and Rain find the last key, and then get to the shuttle. We will leave as soon as I return. What of the last Fear thing? He asked. I will finish this matter alone, and send word of where to pick me up. She turned sharply on her heel, reaching out with the dark side. This matter will be settled today. Fear will no longer haunt my steps. Be careful, sister, he said. Aren't I always, she purred. She began the hunt. She could sense the last Fear. Having dealt with the others, the remaining one now shone like a beacon, easy to track, stronger too, and hopefully more fun to destroy. Unlike Rick, she did enjoy the hunt, and the end of an enemy when she brought him low. Did that make her damned? She was so far from the Ordana farm girl that had first taken steps down the dark path. She was so far from what she was, and that was fine. The dark side had given her the strength and wisdom she needed. She would make the galaxy a better place, free of weakness and the illusion of choice. All would serve her needs and bow to her in humble gratitude. If she was damned, if that is the fate the Force asked of her, then, so be it. It was a small price to pay for going down in history. She found herself drawn to the estate's lower levels. The Fear creature was moving, she could sense it, trying to escape perhaps. It would fail. She had come too far to stop now. She would have her desires. Fear, the last of his legacy, would end. His time was done. Hers had just begun. The trail led her down a long maintenance tunnel. She passed large hissing pipes and electrical conduits. The Dark Lord moved slowly, every step a hunter's tread. Her perceptions cast outward, seeking out any possible traps. Slowly, yet with necessary haste. The Zakuul would arrive soon. She wasn't sure how they had found this place, but in the end, it didn't really matter. They would need to be away before the knights arrived, and yes, she was certain that they were knights. Lennox Gull was likely among them. The fact that he had survived Tatooine didn't surprise her. What she had sensed on an AR Shadow, and after. This one was a survivor, as committed to his goal as she was to hers. She would need to deal with him when the time came, but right now her first concern was getting the key out of here, and setting the next stage of her plan in motion. She could not do that, not as long as a piece of her former master still lived. The Force filled with a sense of foreboding, hastening her steps. She was one shadow among many. She called on the Force to hide her presence, even as she accelerated. She could almost smell her master's double, that inky familiar sense that had haunted her steps these many months. It still annoyed her that she had not recognized what was happening. She had thought the voice in her head as nothing more than the past reaching out. Knowing the truth only fueled her rage. Fear had tried to hide his legacy, and then, his pets had tried to restore it. Never. She would not let that happen. Not again. Never again. She reached the end of the tunnel, and was greeted with familiar sounds, the hum and hiss of engaged lightsabers. The Force roiled with combat. She made her presence small in the Force. If possible, she wished to sneak up on her prey, provided she even needed to. Who knew, maybe whoever was fighting would do her job for her. She would feel minorly cheated, but she would learn to live with that. She entered the chamber, recognizing it instantly as a Sith design power station, a station built into a much older structure, like most on this world. She was surprised to find one of Master Anno's battle droids laying in pieces. A second had been disabled, smoking from several damaged places, trying to restart. Her golden eyes found the battle easily enough. The Force blazed between the two combatants, both moving almost too fast to be seen. She smiled wickedly. She had found the final Fear copy, and facing him. Jazdar Ben, she could see the violet flashes of his weapon, feel the power of the light blazing as he fought off the creature that most would believe was a Dark Lord of the Sith. The thought amused her. A Dark Lord. Right? The creature had fled into these tunnels like a rabbit. He could have stood his ground, faced her in respectful combat, if he was as strong as he believed. But no, that was not what these creatures were. They were proxies of the original, nothing more. No way would the creature have risked itself facing her. Yet, it seemed to be holding its own against the Jedi. She watched, and waited. She could have come to Master Jazz's aid, but why? Now is the time, the dark side whispered in her ear. 2 men battled before her. Neither would leave this place alive. The combatants paused, both out of breath. She got a good look at the final fear. She was surprised. This one was clad simply in the battle armor of the Order. He was slightly smaller than her master had been, but his arms were corded with muscle. He moved with the feline-like grace as he circled the Jedi Master. Jaz Darbin he. She frowned slightly. He didn't look well. He was sweating, his stance was not as crisp as she would have expected. If he was trying to bait Fear's warrior double, to make it believe that he was weakened, he was doing a good job. She certainly thought that the Master was not in a good way. The Fear double raised his hand, and sent a storm of force lightning towards his prey. Jaz caught the attack with his lightsaber, but before he could respond, the double renewed his offense. He cut viciously at the Jedi Master who backpedaled, the Sith's weapon passing over his head, and slicing deep into a pillar behind them both. Above them, the ceiling rumbled. The cut had not destroyed the pillar, but it had weakened it. Master Jaz danced away, dropping into a defensive guard. Both men were proven to be skilled Makashi stylists. Avaryss' respect for Jaz went up, and she found herself even impressed with her master's body double. Crimson and violet blaze flurried, parry, thrust, almost too quick for the eye to see. Finally, their blaze locked, the Fear creature using his strength to try to push the Jedi Master back. He was trying to end this quickly. He could likely sense the coming threat of the Zakuul and Lennox Go. Avaryss shivered. She heard it in the back of her mind, a command that she couldn't have ignored, even if she wished. Now, she acted. She reached out with her hand, and the Force. She yanked her arm back viciously. The damaged pillar could not take it. It cracked loudly and split. It collapsed inward, dropping a section of the roof, almost straight down. Dropping it right on top of Fear and Jaz Darbin. It happened so fast. Neither man had the chance to react, not fast enough. The Jedi tried to flip clear, but a chunk of the ceiling came down, striking him square in the back, sending him to the ground. The Fear double spun his blade, dodging debris, and moved in to finish the Jedi off on his way out of the chamber. Avaryss blocked his blade. A strong force push hit the man. It didn't breach his force shield, but it did serve in pushing him back. That was all she needed. A section of the roof came crashing down. It had tilted down like a chopping blade. It struck the Fear double in the head, crushing him beneath his weight. The thing didn't even have time for a final scream. The rest of the rubble came down hard, burying the bloody smear that had once been her master's warrior proxy. Avaryss watched her own force shields holding off the worst of the debris. Like an invisible umbrella, the stone fell several feet around her in a circle. She didn't move, not until the worst of the collapse had subsided. She stood and waited, reaching out with the force. She sought out any remaining trace of her former master, any sign that one of his doubles might remain. She felt nothing. The realization sent a happy chill up her spine. She had done it. It was finally over. Darth Fear's legacy was no more. Finally, she was free. Free! A pained groan drew her back to the here and now, that in the sound of coughing. She looked amongst the rubble. The Jedi Master still drew breath. For the moment. She stepped out, a cruel smile on her face. Wonderful, she thought. Delicious. Jaz Darbin was in a bad way. His back was broken, and one of his legs was crushed. He rolled onto his back and looked up at the sky, his presence in the Force flickering. Only his great power was holding him here. It was impressive, but it couldn't last. Avaryss stepped out of the shadows, wrapping herself in the illusion of the Dark Lord she would show to the galaxy once she conquered it. The shadows became a long black hooded robe, her face disappearing behind the glamour of her featureless faceplate, the mask she wore in battle. This was the face she wanted the Jedi to see. The face that the galaxy would know and come to fear. The face of the conqueror. "Oh dear," she said mockingly, that doesn't look good. Does it, Master Jazz?" She couldn't help it. In that moment, she cackled. The cackle of an evil witch, something that every child knew to fear in their nightmares. She stood over the dying Jedi. She felt nothing less than triumphant. It was perfect. Everything was perfect. He would die, and in such a way that Finn would know that she didn't lie when he asked what happened. She had not killed Jaz Darbin. Oh no. He had been too slow, too old. Fear and the pillar had gotten him, and her hands were clean. Well, mostly. He coughed blood and looked up at her. Despite the pain, he seemed resolved. "Avi," he murmured, "so it is you." The Jedi shook his head. "It always was you?" She smirked, savoring this moment, a predator enjoying the meal to come. She found herself thinking of Sidar Ben, the Jedi's mad twin brother. She had enjoyed his end. How his mind couldn't accept defeat, or the fact that he was no longer a Jedi, but something that was closer to a Sith than he could have believed. She expected him to beg for help, ask her to help him up, get him out of here. That was one thing she would never do. She still owed Jaz Darbin for their first meeting, when he had embarrassed her, trapping her in a stasis field. After all these years, she finally had the chance for revenge. Jaz didn't ask. He didn't beg or cry out in pain. He looked calm, though, perhaps a little sad. He gave her a sad smile. "Thank you," he asked. Her eyes narrowed. "For what?" "For not forcing this confrontation on Lord's Reach. Although my life was over then, but you didn't try to take it." He let out a pained sigh. "You gave me a chance to compose messages for my loved ones, my wife and children. Thank you for that mercy." The Dark Lord's eyes narrowed. "No," she thought. "No. This is not how it was supposed to go. You can't do this," she snarled. "You can't. You will die here, and my plan will succeed." He looked up at her, his face a mask of pain, but his eyes calm and collected. She didn't like that either. Why was he not begging? He was Sai's brother, was he not? Why wouldn't he beg? "I have waited a long time for this moment. Know that your end is just the beginning. All that you love and care about will be ripped away and used to serve me." "It is not too late," he replied. "Whatever you have planned, you can stop it. It is not too late. It is not too late to undo this madness." "Madness," she cackled. "You don't understand. What is happening now is the beginning of a new world. Nothing will keep me from it. It doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to go down this path, to face the world alone. Finn, he was right about you. You can still find your way back. He loves you, girl. If you let him, he would help you find a way back. A way out of this. All you have to do is let go of your hate." "Is this how a Jedi begs for his life?" she asked, igniting her lightsaber. Again, he smiled. "I'm not begging for my life. My time is done. I've dreamed about this moment many times over the last 5 decades. I'm begging for your life. You still have people that would love you if you gave them the chance. They could save you." "I don't need to be saved," she spat back. "As for your plea, and all those that love me, I have only one thing left to say, Master Jaz. Love is nothing. Power is eternal." He shook his head. He sighed weakly, his presence continuing to flicker in the Force. "I had such high hopes for you, girl. You could have been so much more. You could have been a bridge between two worlds, and instead, you chose to walk the same path of those that came before. The path to failure, the path of the Sith." She sneered down at him. How little he understood. She had already won. Her revenge against him was complete. It taken time, almost 2 years, but the work was done. Sanctuary Base was established. It was built on his home world. His home, his people would be hers soon enough. Bantoon would be the seat of the new Sith Empire. Her empire. His family would be cast down, and she would rise. The perfect revenge, all that was his was now hers, or would be, formally when she left Survivor Base and returned to her throne. Yes, she hissed, savoring that knowledge. I walk the path to ultimate power. You can feel free to hate me if you want. He groaned and looked up at the stars, not really seeing her, she realized. He was looking past her. He was looking into the Force. I don't hate you, child. I pity you. He forced himself to meet her gaze, to see into her. His expression turned grim. This will not end as you want it to. This is your last chance, Kira. Turn to Finn. Turn away from the darkness. This is your last chance. He grimaced, still holding on to the light. They will kill you if you force them to. He sighed. Finn and the others will destroy you. She looked down upon him, this dying fool. This, Jedi. Her rage built anew, it blazed like a fusion furnace. She raised her blade. He let out a tired sigh and closed his eyes. It is time, I'm ready to go. Darth Avaryss, Dark Lord of the Sith, roared in fury. Die, Jedi. Her blade fell. Jazz whispered one word, one last sweet word. Vess. The blade met his neck. Jazz Darbin vanished. The Sith Lord's blade buried into the stone, as his clothing, the old coat and black shirt, the jeans with blood stripes fell inward. Avaryss stepped back in shock. What? He. What? What the hell had happened? There was no blood, and no body. Jazz Darbin was gone. His body had vanished. The Dark Lord felt the Force ripple outward. What had just happened would be sensed across the planet. Jazz Darbin, Jedi Master, was gone. But. She shuddered. The Force felt different. It was as if he was still here, still looking down upon her, stronger than ever. No, she thought, shaking her head. No. Impossible. We will speak again in your final moments, his voice whispered in her ear. She wanted to flee, to run as far from this place as possible, but she wouldn't do it. No. She was a Dark Lord of the Sith. She was fear and death. She would not let such feelings infect her. She used the Force to scoop up Jazz's lightsaber. Finn would want it. Despite his attempt to goad her into killing him, her blade had not done the final deed. Jazz Darbin had died, but not by her hand. Finn would know that. She would not need to lie. She sent the signal to Zen, and headed for the nearest exit. She was out of time, but then again, so were the survivors. She could sense it. She could sense the girl's excitement, her sense of accomplishment. She had the final key. Avaryss had the final key. Everything was as it should be. Fear was gone. Jazz Darbin was dead, and she had the key. The time of the endgame was here. So what if the Jedi's death had not gone as she had hoped? He was gone. The survivors would feel loss and fear, as they should. She was not afraid. What she was sensing, that wasn't fear. It could not be. She was the Dark Lord, and the next Empress of the galaxy. She didn't feel fear. No. A shiver ran down her spine. We will speak again in your final moments. No, she would not fear. No. She wasn't afraid. Chapter 62. They already know. Finn should have guessed as much. A transmission had come to Survivor Base mere minutes after IT had happened. Multiple transmissions from the Aphon system, or rather, its one inhabited planet. Strangely enough, the communications officer had not had a chance to answer. A pre-recorded message had been set up to play if any calls came in from Bantoon. Finn had frowned when he heard that, unsure what to make of it. Then, after the call, he had found his message, waiting in his master's officer. His late master. The events of the last few hours played over and over in his head. He still couldn't believe it. No. It could not be true, but it was. He had felt it, knew it to be true. The survivors had won the battle, but he feared they had lost the war. They had only just made it back. The flight from Kraz had been a mad dash. The survivors had been running for their lives. The Zakuul attack ships had breached the atmosphere just seconds after the survivors and Avi's people had taken to the sky. Colonel Capistan had ordered that escape was their first priority. They didn't waste time engaging the shuttles or the skytroopers that were dropping from the enemy ships. Finn had done nothing. He had just stood beside Chris in shock. They all had been in shock. What he had felt, Finn had sensed his master's hand. It had left him numb. He only had enough presence of mind to move, to make it to the ship. Only 2 of the Zakuul ships had pursued them. The rest had made for the surface, and paid for it. Avi had been in the power station when word had come that the enemy were approaching. The power station's reactor overloaded even as the Zakuul ships had started to touch down. The geothermal plant melted down. Finn had not seen the end, but he had felt it in the Force. The Zakuul Knights had had no time to flee as their ships were consumed in the conflagration. The remaining Zakuul transports had fired up them, breaching their shields and melting their armor, but the Republic troop transports were tough, and those modified by the survivors had been tougher still. The enemy had been unable to stop them. The survivors had managed to achieve orbit, but had not been out of danger. The Eternal Fleet ships had begun to move in. Having no way around, the survivors had gone through the enemy blockade. The warships fired upon them, but had not managed to destroy them. Even Finn, still lost in shock and pain, had been surprised to hear that they had lost no ships slipping the blockade. It was amazing that the survivors had not been destroyed as they flew between those ships. The autoguns of the Eternal Fleet were deadly, but the Force had been with them. Perhaps the ships were too small for the Eternal Fleet to target successfully. Whatever the reason, they made it through, battered with more than a few panels sparking. They managed to break out and escape into hyperspace. 2 hours later, they had linked up at the rendezvous point and headed back to Survivor Base. At the rendezvous, he had spoken with Avi, heard what had happened. Master Jazz had been killed battling a duplicate of her former master. The double had brought the roof of the facility crashing down on both of them. He had died as she had approached him. She had been unable to help. She handed him his master's lightsaber. She informed him that there had been no body to bring back, that he had vanished into the Force upon his death. Again, the word hit him like a capital ship. Dead? Jazdar Ben was dead. He still couldn't believe it, or rather, didn't want to believe it. Jazdar Ben had been his hero for over a decade, a man who had walked into fire and death hundreds of times and emerged, maybe not unscathed, but always had managed to make it home. Not this time, though. No, not this time. The calls had been waiting when they arrived, asking to speak with him by name. Finn knew who it was. How could it be anyone else? They had felt it too. Finn could guess what they wanted, and knew what he had to tell them. He took a deep breath and let it out slowly. He made for Master Jazz's office. He had nearly knocked as he had done 100 times before. A knock that was no longer needed, and would never be needed again. The thought nearly put him on his knees. Cursing himself for a fool, he entered the room, sealed it, and activated the hypercom. He sat down at his master's desk, feeling unworthy of it. Yet, it was here that the signals had been routed. It was here that he needed to speak to them. He could not contain the sense of shame he felt. I should have been there, he thought. I could have helped. Yet, Master Jazz had waved him off. Why had he done it? Finn wondered. Why? Law started to turn to anger, but he pushed it down. Anger would not serve, not here, and not now. Now, he had to focus on those that were calling. He needed to be there for them. It is what his master would have wanted. He took another deep breath. It was never good to be a bearer of bad or tragic news. Yet, it fell to him. He was Jazz's student. He had trained at the man's feet for almost 10 years. They had remained friends and Jedi brothers even after that training had been completed. I should have done something, he thought. I could have done something. The transmission connected, and the 3 signals shimmered into existence. He looked up at the 3 holograms, life-size representations of the people who shared his loss and his grief. What could he tell them? How could he admit that he had failed? The first was a young woman about 10 years his senior. Tall and slender, her long blonde hair was styled in intricate braids. She was dressed in robes befitting someone of high rank, and likely would have fitted perfectly on the floor of the Galactic Senate. Every bit the queen in the making, he thought, a proper heir for her mother's throne. The young man, a few years older than him, was dressed just as richly, but somehow, more conservatively, his suit vest and silken shirt all in gray and black. His hair was long, a much darker honey blonde, and slightly curly, coming down to his shoulders. A small wool-tailored goatee graced his slender jaw. The dandy lord of the underworld of Bantoon, Finn knew, known as Underlord Go on the moons of Bantoon. Few could believe that he was the son of a queen and a Jedi master, but he was. The last Holo was the person he was most familiar with, the youngest of the three. They were of the same age, and had met many times over the years. She wore a blue and green military-style uniform, her blonde hair up in an intense bun. Unlike her siblings, even over the hologram, he could see the redness of her eyes, the puffiness around them. She had been crying, and he didn't blame her. Part of him wished that he could cry too. She was the one closest to him, the one he knew best. Had she been here, he might have hugged her, told her things would be okay. Even though he knew that they would not be. All three, so different, but one thing they all shared, the thing that cut him deeper than a knife. They all had gray eyes, their father's eyes. His master's eyes, and they all stared at him accusingly. "You failed, Finn Shadowstone," those eyes said. "You failed." The eldest girl was the first to speak after his brief introduction, after he told them what Evie had told him. After he had explained what had happened. The words came in a flood, but stopped as soon as they were out, stopped by pain and loss. He had wanted to say more, but words failed him. As the holograms appeared, as he faced them, he had no words. All that would come out was two words. "I'm sorry? We received Father's transmission," the older girl said. We all hoped it was a mistake, even after we felt." The young man looked over at her. He seemed calm and composed, in pain, yes, but in control. "This is not the floor of the matriarchy, Mary," he said to her. "You don't have to speak eloquently right now. There are no holocams here, and no reporters." He managed a sad smile. "You don't have to wrestle with words right now. Finn knows how you feel. He understands." The woman, Merrick's Mary Istillo, nodded, and wiped at her eyes. There were no tears there. But she still made sure they would not fall. I am rarely at a loss for words, Gabe," she said. This is still so unreal." Gabrielle Oris Darbin, Jazz's son, nodded. Even over the holo, Finn could feel the young man reaching out with the Force, touching his sister's mind and heart. He was not strong in the Force as Mary was, but that didn't mean he could not feel it, or use it to comfort, or seek comfort. Finn lowered his head. He wished he could offer comfort, but he felt so alone, numb. He still wanted to deny it, that sense of emptiness, but he could not. Jazz Darbin, their leader, his master, was gone. He was not sure what happened next. The younger girl looked down upon him. "It was in battle, yes?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, Bela," he replied. "Master James, your father died fighting." She nodded. "He always knew that would happen," she said. "He dreamed of it many times. Confessed that he had had those dreams to each of us, as we came of age." Finn nodded again. He was amazed his master would have done such a thing, but, perhaps, he should not have been. Jazz Darbin had been a Jedi first and foremost. A Jedi didn't fear death. It was simply another part of life. Finn tried to remember that, focus on that, but, in this moment, it was hard. Too hard. "Were your losses grave?" Merrick asked him. "How are the survivors?" "We were successful," Finn informed her. "Only injuries on our side, except for." He fell silent. "Only one loss. It should have made this attack worthy to celebrate, but it wasn't." Master Jazz was gone. Finn had not saved him. Princess Merrick sniffled and wiped at her face again. Father would have been pleased. Then, knowing that his sacrifice saved so many. She nodded at Finn. "You did well." Finn's eyes narrowed. "I did well," he thought. "I did well." "Your father died, Mary," he snarled, I couldn't save him, and he died. He rose from the chair, almost flipping the table over in his anger. How can you say I did well? Finn waited for the explosion. These three were the children of his master. They had every right to be furious with him. In that moment, he welcomed their rage, expected it. What he got was not that. They looked at him, their eyes widened by his anger, and his reaction to a simple compliment. In that moment, it was not them that he saw, but their father. Jazz's eyes widened at his rage. Anger was replaced by shame. He bowed his head pathetically. I'm sorry. Forgive the outburst. I'm okay. I'll be all right. The three glanced each other. Finn, Bayla said, concern in her gray eyes. It is not all right. You are not all right. He took a deep breath. She was right, but he didn't like it. I'm fine. He wanted to snarl. I'm fine. Gabe turned back to him. How would you have done it? He asked. What? Finn replied. How would you have saved father? Finn shook his head. Had I been there, I could have, might have. Mary frowned. Do you blame Dad for what happened? She asked. What? No. He trusted you with getting the others to safety. You accomplished that mission. He took the same chance all soldiers take, as all Jedi have taken. Mary sighed and shook her head. One life, for many, she said. Dad would have called that a fair trade. Finn's hands curled into fists. How can you be so calm about this? He was your father. He is still my father, but I was raised in the Jedi way, just as you were, she answered. We feel sorrow, and we will mourn his passing. That loss, it is an emptiness in me. In all of us, Gabe added. Bayla nodded, wiping at her face. Mary, Princess Merrick Sistillo, heir to the throne of Bantoon, stood straighter. I loved my father, but I will not disgrace his memory by forgetting what he lived for, what he believed in. He taught us the code, just as he did you, I suspect. There is no death. There is the Force, Bayla and her brother repeated. Again, Finn felt his anger rise. Do you think that I'm disgracing his memory? I think you are too close to this pain, and that it is too raw. She gave him a sympathetic look. I think you need time. Finn didn't respond. She was not wrong. Gabe gave him a sad smile. How are the other survivors doing? This can't be easy for any of you. Finn took another deep breath. Condescending, he thought. Arrogant. Yet, he held his temper in check, for their sake, and the memory of their father, his master. He chose to be honest. Morale is very low, he admitted. Chris is trying to keep things going, but... Finn shook his head. I was Jazz's Padawan. It falls to me to keep things on track. I can't falter, not now. Bayla gave him a worried look. Do you have anyone there that you can talk to? You shouldn't deal with this alone. I'm not alone, he said quickly. Yes, he needed to talk with someone, he realized. No, more than talk. He needed Abby. Wanted her. She would make him feel better. Being with her would be better. So, Bayla added quickly, you're not alone. Good. Finn blushed slightly. Of all his master's children, he knew Bayla the best. After Coruscant and Ambria, he had spent a few months on Bantoon with his master. He had lived in the palace and in the royal apartments. It had been very different from the temple. He had been 12 and still dealing with the fallout of the sacking of Coruscant. Bayla had been the same age and a bomb when things got too serious or his anger flared. She had been a sweet girl and a kind listening ear. They had had fun together whenever Master Jazz had decided to return home. Finn had enjoyed those visits. They had been a release of sorts, and always, Bayla had been there. Things had changed during their last visit. He had been 16, it had been during that long period that Abby had cut herself off from him. He had found himself on Bantoon again. What happened? He had never told Master Jazz. Bayla had come to his quarters one night, came to him, kissed him, and asked to be with him. It was coming time for her to think of the future of their house, she had told him. They had been friends for years, and she thought that they should be more. She had wanted to lay with him, offered herself. She had asked him to serve as her lord consort and, if he was willing, one day, her husband. He had been surprised, to say the least. I can't do it, he had thought at the time. What would Master Jazz say if I said yes? What would he say if I chose to lay with his daughter? It had felt like a betrayal that Finn would not risk. He had turned her down, gently, and they had remained friends, but the what if from that moment still haunted him from time to time. When those thoughts came up, he reminded himself of what he wanted. He had wanted to be a Jedi. He was a Jedi. He couldn't be what Bay wanted him to be. Is that why you did it? His conscience whispered, or was it because he still wanted to be with Avi, even then he had known that they would meet? A few months later, that had happened. Perhaps you should get out of the fight for a bit, Finn, Merrick suggested, drawing him out of his memories, and back to the present. You and the survivors would be welcomed on Bantu. You could rest, recover from your recent losses. He shook his head. Tempting, my lady, he said, but Master Jazz would not have wanted me to risk bringing the Zakuul down on your home world. The heir to the throne sniffed at that. Our defenses are strong, Finn. Nevertheless, we can't risk it. Your father's orders. The woman nodded, and didn't push further. Finn was grateful. Master Jazz had been clear on one point, and made sure his apprentice understood. Avi could never set foot on Bantoon. The Sith had tried twice to take control of Bantoon. It was a jewel of the Mid-Rim. It was a world of wealth and scientific capabilities, a fruit that few Sith could resist. Darth Revan had conquered it during his war, only to lose it when he had lost his throne to Darth Malak. Then only a few short decades ago, a Sith Lord had infiltrated the Bond nobles and nearly took the world for himself. Jazz, Queen Viseria, and her protector Char Valentine had defeated the Sith and drove him off. Yet, the stain of that fight remained. The Bond didn't like the Sith or trust them, not that anyone could blame them. Avi, despite his feelings for her, was still a Sith and had a Sith's ambitions. His master had decided not to take the chance. Master Jazz feared what might happen if Avi found her way onto his home world, or perhaps feared how his people would react if they found out a Sith had entered on his word. Regardless, he thought it wiser not to risk it. Avi, and her Sith, would never touch Bantoon soil. He had made Finn promise. It was a promise that he would keep, no matter the cost. The offer still stands, Finn, Bayla said. It would be good to see you again. He nodded, gratefully. Merrick turned to her brother. You should come home, brother. Mom will need us now, all of us. He managed a sheepish grin. I can't imagine that I will be very welcome. The Underlord go walk in the halls of the palace. Mother understands why you do what you do, she reminded him. Besides, she needs you right now. How is she doing? He asked. How is she handling it? It has only been a few hours, Mary answered. She is heartbroken, but has thrown herself into her work. She is already arranging a state funeral. Word is already being sent to the matriarchs. Bayla nodded knowingly. Mom always preferred to work when she was troubled, but it would be good for all of us to be in the palace for her. Finn said nothing, but he was pleased to hear it. Viseria was a good queen, and whatever comfort she could find in this time, the better. Besides, Jazz deserved to be honored. He had come to love the people of Bantoon, and they had come to care for him, despite his distance from the world in the last decade. His hand drifted to the lightsaber on his belt, his master's saber. It would need to go back to Bantoon as well. It was all that was left of Master Jazz. His family deserved to have it. What of Char Valentine? He asked. Has anyone told her what has happened? Val is off-world for the moment, Mary informed him. She is helping Tara's uncle deal with some problems on Alderaan. Of course, she may already know something has happened. Val has been connected with Dad almost as long as she has been connected to Mother. Finn considered that. Char Valentine had been one of his master's best friends for almost 5 decades. Once, they had even been lovers, or so he had heard. Perhaps even Master Jazz first. Their bond was as close as family, maybe even closer than the one he shared with Captain Cooper, a man he saw as a brother. Finn feared what the woman might say when she heard, or what this might do to her. She was tough, and still strong despite her many years, but those had been very long years. Val was in her 70s now, by human standards, though her genetic enhancements allowed her to function as a woman 20 or 30 years younger. He hoped that she would be able to handle the loss both for Queen Viseria and her children's sakes. Another loss right now would be a hard blow to the family. Bayla shook her head. It is a shame that we couldn't bring a body back. Our father deserved to lay on the world he fought so long and hard for. He deserved to rest in a place of honor. You need not worry about that, Finn reminded her. He is a part of the Force now, went into it completely. He is a part of not just Bantoon, but the galaxy as a whole. Saying those words, surprisingly, brought Finn a bit of comfort. It soothed the rage within him somewhat. He welcomed that now. He needed that now. When you have the chance. We would still like you to visit, Merrick's repeated. Our mother would be grateful to see you. She misses the boy you were, and would be happy to see the man you have become. Plus it will put her at ease. Some of the messages from Father they were worrying. His brow furrowed at her admission. Jazz was worried about me. Why? I have things under control. Don't worry about me, he replied. I'm fine. After saying their goodbyes, and the holograms faded, Finn remained in the office and watched the final message left by his master. It had been addressed to him and left in the hypercom for his eyes only. Finn sat back and listened to it, unsure of what he might hear. He watched as the hologram appeared and began to speak. When it was done, he felt different, a mix of emotions he could not entirely pin down. It seemed that Jazz Darbin had sensed that his end was near. For months he had remained on base, determined to make the best of remaining time. Finn's master had been, if not ill, then weakening these past few months. Through the Force he had sensed that his days were growing shorter, and he had used his power to try to remain in the few remaining moments he had left. Finn had been angered at hearing that. He could have told me, he thought. He should have told me. The message ended with Jazz asking that Finn remember his training and the promises he had made. His master had been worried about Finn's relationship to Avaryss. Yet, he had seen the value in it. He had seen it as a chance to bridge two worlds, but still suggested caution. Your love and compassion for this girl does you credit, lad, Jazz had said, but, at the same time, those feelings could be used to serve a great evil. I agree with you that there is still good in her, but is it enough? Is there enough left of Kira Lillis to save Darth Avaryss? You must do what you must to bring that good out, or be strong enough to deal with the darkness if that is all that is left. You must be ready, my Padawan. Be mindful of what is to come. His master had sighed then, and shook his head. I will always be with you, kid. I have loved you like a son, don't doubt that. Be strong and wise, and remember that you are not alone. The holo of Jazz bowed to his student one last time. May the Force be with you, Finn, always. The message ended. Finn sat there, thinking. Alone. Despite what his master said, that is what it felt like. The only time that he didn't feel alone was with Avi or Taya. Yet, he would do his duty. What came next would be on him. He needed to do the right thing. They had all 5 of the keys that Avaryss had sought. Dangerous weapons all, and they could not fall into either Sith or Zakul hands. They needed to be removed, disposed of, quickly. He needed to contact True. Jazz had already briefed her. She would see these Sith artifacts safely to their new home, at least until they could be safely destroyed. He also needed to contact Captain Cooper, inform him of Jazz's death. Again, it was not a call he was looking forward to. He had another call to make too, though he was surprised that she had not contacted him. He was surprised that he had not heard from Vei Ilo, yet she had been Jazz's master. Surely she felt what had happened. Though she might have a reason for her silence, she had been training a new apprentice. Shira had told him as much, a human boy with very strong Force talent. Perhaps that was why she was not here. Perhaps she was distracted. Or maybe she didn't care. The thought came unbidden, but he pushed it aside, just as easily. The survivors needed him to be strong now. He needed to be there for them. For Chris, Gilly, and Timon. He needed to be there for Avi as well, her and Taya, and the rest. He sighed. It was a huge task, and his master had left him to carry the load, thought him ready. I'll prove him right, Finn thought. He was strong, stronger than most realized. He raised his hand, tried to summon the golden lightning of Force judgment. It didn't come. Crackles of blue-violet energy leapt from his fingers, sparking hungrily. Finn frowned and lowered his hand. In the shadows of his new office, his golden Sith eyes glowed brightly. Damn, he thought. Things were not going well, but he knew what he had to do. He couldn't stop, and for the sake of his master's memory, he would not. I can't do this, he thought. I'm fine. Chapter 63. He is gone, but his name remains. Finn lowered his hand, the laser drill he carried still glowing hot, just as the letters that had just been added to the stone. The name of a friend, a leader, and a master. Jazdar Bin was now part of the stone. He turned to the others. They all were here, technicians, soldiers, and allies all. Some looked up at him, while others bowed their heads in memory and respect. Finn nodded, grateful for their presence, and what it meant. It kept him centered, and he needed that right now. He had needed this right now. His name remains, he continued, speaking the words that his master has spoken before many times, and will do so forever. Let this company and the Force bear witness. As long as there is hope, no hero is truly gone, there is no death, there is the Force. There is the Force, the rest of the group murmured, those who knew enough to say the word. Good words, he thought. True words. Those words, they were not part of any funeral rite he had ever heard of. No priest or holy being had ever spoken them. They had come from the survivors themselves, to honor their victorious dead. The ragtag group of misfits that had come together to protect their home and to defy an empire. The misfits that had become heroes. Finn was not sure how the tradition had gotten started. The rock formation, what the older survivors had come to call the Great Stone, had stood above Survivor Base since the group had first settled here. Blue-gray, and the size of a medium-class freighter, it had served as a marker of sorts for where the base was hidden. At some point, one of their group had first started adding the names of the fallen to the stone. Sometime those names were carved, as Jazz had been, others had been done in spray paint. There were even small murals on the stone, faces of those that had fallen, their deeds, and how their friends and loved ones remembered them. Finn had first seen this place years ago, when he had first begun his apprenticeship. Master Jazz had wanted to show him that he was not alone, and that those that had fallen fighting the Empire were not forgotten, despite the surrender at Coruscant. Those memories, those people, had been important. It was all the squad had had sometimes. During the First War, they had not always had the option of reclaiming the bodies of the fallen. The Sith had made that difficult, swarming a battlefield like a plague of insects. Yet, the loss still deserved to be remembered. So one by one, the names had been added here. It was a part of the group, and they all accepted it as such. It belonged to the survivors, to them, and them alone. They were all here. Some he knew, others he didn't. Timon's father's name was here, as was poor Izzy Dragan, killed during the mission to destroy the Shadow's embrace, and so many others. Some had died heroes, their names written into the histories. Others had passed in a blink of an eye, gone too soon before their deeds could be recorded. All had been survivors who had not made it home. As the stone cooled, as Jazz's name settled into the rock, there was silence. No one spoke in that moment. There would be time for speech later, in the mess hall, over drinks, as stories and memories were shared, celebrating the life of the one who had been lost. For now, though, there was simple reflection, as there had been many times before. Master Jazz was now a part of the stone. Even when the group was not based here, someone returned to honor those that had given their lives in defense of the Republic and their comrades. Finn looked down at the newest name, the man who had saved his life almost 15 years ago, who had taken in an angry Jedi youngling and taught him to be more. In that moment, a single tear fell, He reached out to the stone, thinking about all those years they had fought together, trained together, and lived. He took a breath to settle himself. "Goodbye, old friend," he murmured. "Goodbye." Darth Avaryss stood with her fellows and watched the ceremony with a cool, evaluating eye. Once upon a time, during the early days of her training, Darth Fear had taken her to one of his purse worlds. They had attended a funeral for one of the overseers there, a man who had died in an accident. Avi had still been on autopilot in those days. She had had no confidence and barely any will of her own. Fear had enjoyed those times. All he had to do was speak, and she would listen. He taught, and she learned. "Watch closely, my child," her master had whispered during the ceremony. "This is a very important part of your training. We will discuss it later." Avaryss had nodded. She had not questioned. She had still been broken from her time on Korriban, upon realizing that her entire academy training had been a manipulation. Thinking back, she realized that her master had been right, and what she was sensing now, seeing now, proved that. Fear had been right. That day had been a very important part of her training. What she was seeing now harkened back to that moment. It was both enlightening and reassuring. The Force was filled with grief. Jaz Darbin had been a part of this group since the beginning. He had been the one who had first formed it, molded into the Force that it would become, and would remain for almost 3 decades. Now that he was gone, would the center hold? That was the question, and as she looked upon the remaining survivors, she realized that all that could be, and would be, hung by a single thread. One being would be the difference between continued existence and crushing defeat. That being stood between them now, equal distant between the remaining survivors, standing to his right, and the Sith and their loyal, standing to his left. Finn Shadowstone. What would he become without his master? Master Jaz had been the only thing grounding his former student since his return from Tatooine. She suppressed an urge to smile. He had been the last real roadblock standing in her way. She masked her excitement well, keeping it small and hidden within herself. Jaz Darbin was gone, and now the time had almost come. She looked over the gathering, taking careful note of who was there and where they were standing. She did as her master had done all those years ago, and watched, and weighed her options. So much pain it was in these moments that everything was laid bare, raw emotions shown without restraint. Fear had understood that, and made sure that she understood as well. "Did you do it, Master?" That had been the question she had asked Darth Fear, after they had left the Overseer's funeral, after they had returned to his private quarters aboard his dreadnought. Fear had given her a sly smile, and leaned back in his chair. "To be honest, I never spoke with the man, or visited this world until today," he confessed. "So why come here?" she had asked. What was the point? "For 3 reasons, my apprentice. 1, there have been rumors of the man's disloyalty, rumors spread by certain elements that wanted to see him replaced. My presence here hints that I may have acted on those rumors. 2, my men checked on those rumors and found no evidence to support them. If anything, they proved the man's loyalty. That means he was worthy of my support, and my protection for what he stood for. My coming suggests as much to the loyalists here. My presence suggests my support, and that I may choose to intervene and help find the murderer." Was the Overseer murdered? She had asked. There was no evidence of foul play, and I sensed no deception. "No, my child, I tend to believe this death was an accident." Avaryss had nodded. "You said there were 3 reasons." Fear's smile had widened. 3, he purred. "Power, apprentice. Power was the reason we came here. By attending the funeral, I seized power from both the loyalists and the overly ambitious. They all know that they are still mine. I still stand above them, and that they need to watch their backs. This provides comfort for the loyal and a reason to pause of those that have ambitions of their own. So either way, she had reason, this death serves you." "Indeed, child," he had answered. "It is a flip of a coin that is rigged. Heads, I win. Tails, you lose. Always try to make such situations serve you, my dear. Do so, and power will always be yours. Avaryss remembered that lesson well, and took it to heart even today. Again, her master had been right. No matter what happened, no matter what anyone believed, Jaz's death had served her. The survivors looked to Finn, the apprentice of their leader, and in expecting so much of him they were trapped. Did some suspect her involvement? Possibly, but they couldn't prove it, and no Jedi could sense duplicity on her part because there was none. Yet, still, she profited from the Jedi Master's death. If they believed Finn was Master Jaz's true successor, he would lead them to destruction as he continued down the dark path. If they suspected that he had turned on them, those thoughts would alienate him from the rest of the survivors. That distrust would draw Finn further into the darkness, making him more and more hers. Whatever happened, whatever the outcome, she would win. The keys, Finn, and the galaxy itself now hung in the balance, and all rested on the flip of a coin, a rigged coin. Heads, you lose. Tails, I win. Both prizes were already hers. The survivors didn't know that yet, and still, they continued on, nursed to the slaughter. Her master would have been proud. She regarded the major players of the survivor squad in turn. Chris and Gilly stood together. The normally stoic sniper was leaning against her former love, her eyes red. She was barely keeping it together. Jaz Darbin was the first person to truly trust her, believe in her. His loss was hitting her hard. The Wookiee, Rufadamek, had chosen to remain with the survivors after the events at Lord's Reach. The large black-furred Wookiee with tan stripes still intimidated her. He would need to be eliminated when she finally made her move. He remained a bit of a wild card for her. Unlike the rest of the group, he had little experience of working with Jaz Darbin, but at the same time, she could feel his sense of loss. Wookiees, according to Finn, were a passionate species. They formed strong attachments with their allies, and were even known to bind themselves to people for life who saved them, or those they cared about. Avaryss realized that she would need to be very careful with this one. Her phobia about his kind remained. She needed to remember that she didn't feel fear. She was fear. Dr. Tag, a woman who had seen much death during her military years, and those in medical service, seemed to be in control, but her eyes kept falling on her son. Was she worried about him now that Jaz was gone? Did she see, or hear, what was happening to Finn, and fear for the boy's safety? If so, the Dark Lord thought, then the doctor is wise, very wise indeed. Timon took his cues from his master, and Finn was in an interesting place right now. Avi could feel it through their connection. The dark side continued to flow through the cracks she had created using the keys, and now that all five were together. She shivered. Ugh. The keys were now all awake and singing in her mind. Even now, she could feel the music penetrating and binding itself to her. Her power was now closely tied to the keys, and it would only grow stronger the more she used them. It was intoxicating, glorious. It was like a great symphony, a song of conquest and blood. It fired her soul and was filling her head with ideas. The keys were whispering, and she listened. She saw it in her mind, a great tower and temple, a place designed for one purpose alone, to focus the full power of the keys and open the doors the Darth Acina had sought to open all those years ago. Not just a building, but an extinction-level event, waiting to wake itself. The design, the function of such a place was intricate, but it would serve her purpose well. The temple would take years to build, and needed to be designed just so. It would take specific materials and artisans, but she was not concerned. It would take time to construct, but that was okay. That time would be worth it, and best of all, she had a place to construct it in near secrecy. Sanctuary Base would be perfect. It would be the site of her temple, and soon, the place of her throne. Subtlety, cunning, deception, and betrayal, the weapons of the dark side were they, and soon, she would employ them all, and in the end, everything would fall into her lap. Everything. She almost giggled, but held it in. She didn't think the mourners here would understand. Time was on her side, the galaxy was divided, the Zakuul occupied and holding two superpowers in check, while the Republic and Empire schemed to get out from beneath their heel. By the time the other sides realized what was happening, it would be too late. She would strike at the Zakuul first. The Spire would be the first world to fall to her. The keys and death knell would do its work. Every man, woman, and child on the Zakuul throne world would be dead or dying in a matter of hours. Her small fleet would then move in. She would seize the vacant eternal throne, and with it the massive fleet of her grandfather. The legions of sky troopers would be hers. She would put Arkan and his family's heads on pikes and display them before her throne, a warning to those that would try and oppose her. The Emperor is dead, all would say. Long live the Empress. She glanced over at her cadre of followers. They had grown over the month she had served here. Where once she had only Taya, now she had a formidable Sith force. Zen was a dangerous and known commodity. Rain was growing stronger every day, and her ties to Timon suggested that there was still a chance to bring him into their group. Beric would serve her, both because of his programming and his desire to atone for what Darth Sadi had made him do to her. Terran, though he stood with the common soldiers on the survivor side, was drawn to her, and hers because of what had happened to his father. His loyalty would not be hard to win if conflict came. Bliss and Jir were children, but they had been training with the dark side since the cradle. She didn't know their full capabilities yet, but she could sense their growing power. And they are mine, she thought with a barely concealed sneer. Blood of my blood, and they will do what their mother asks. Again, a point in her favor. She again turned to Rain. Her young apprentice had her hood up, her eyes were downcast. Avaryss was surprised to sense regret in the girl. It seemed that she, unlike the others, mourned along with their survivor allies. Curious. They would need to discuss matters when they were alone. Avi could not afford to let her apprentice forget where her true loyalties lay. She would tell the girl the story about her and fear at the overseer's funeral, see if she reached the same conclusion that her master had all those years ago. Of course, she realized that conversation would need to wait for a night at least. She looked at Finn. Through their corrupted bond, she could feel his pain, and in that pain, his desire. She needed to keep him moving down the dark path. Soon, he would be too far gone to turn back, and then she would have him. A shiver ran down her spine as his yellow eyes found hers. They promised so much, he needed comfort, release. She could provide both, easily enough, and in that finding. Another step would be taken, perhaps more than one. Regardless, everything was working as she had foreseen. Not much longer now, she thought. Soon enough, my love, you will be where you need to be. Her heart beat faster as she reached out. She felt a growing warmth in her gut, a warmth that spread deliciously outward. Yes, she thought with a hungry look in her eyes. Soon. As the memorial concluded, the survivors returned to the underground. Those not on duty met in the mess hall to celebrate the life of Jaz Darbin. Those who had been with the group longest had told stories to those too young to have heard them. Not tales of war and glory, but simple life here at Survivor Base. How Jaz and the group had spent their downtime and become more than fellow soldiers. How they had become friends, and to some, a family. Finn kept his distance. He could feel that some of the older survivors didn't want him intruding. Perhaps they even blamed him for not going to his master's aid. That thought angered him. He gave me an order. I was to stay and make sure the group made it to safety. How dare they blame him for what happened? How dare they? He looked around the chamber. Once he would have sought solace with his fellow Jedi, but their numbers were so few here now. Master Ano was meditating in the corner, his cybernetics winking on and off. What did the Rodian think of all this? He had fought in the last war. Did he have his own experiences in serving beside Jaz Darbin? Was he exploring those memories as he explored the Force and his own cybernetics? Finn couldn't say. Timon was equally distracted. Zay had pulled him off to the side. He couldn't hear what was passing between the two young people. He could have checked, used the Force, but he respected their privacy. The boy had fought well during the fight against Darth Vader's forces. He had proven that he was not a little boy anymore. Finn shook his head. If the boy chose to seek comfort from Zay tonight, he would not stand in his way. If anything, it might help move things forward. They had helped Avi retrieve the keys. Surely now she could see the value between their alliance and seek to continue it into the future. Master Finn. He looked down. Avi's little girl stood before him. He still wasn't sure what to make of that thought. Avi had children born not of her body, but her blood. The boy, Jeer, avoided the Jedi and survivors. He stuck close to the Sith in the camp, particularly Abominus. Boy and monster had been whispering together since the journey back from Cross. He would need to ask Avi about that, see if she needed to intervene. He didn't really trust the thing that called itself Nessie. He could not guess the danger if she sank her claws deep into a child with the same potential as his mother. The girl was more cautious. He had seen her watching him during their trip back. Now she had sought him out, her yellow eyes and pale skin marking her as one who knew more about the darkness than one her age should. Her long black hair pulled back into a long ponytail. He smiled down at her. "Greetings, youngling," he said with a slight bow. She returned it. "I am Bliss." "So I have heard," he said politely. "Is there something that I can do for you?" She blinked and looked down shyly. "If you have a question," he volunteered, "I will do my best to answer it." She looked up then, her yellow eyes meeting his. "Are you our father, Master Finn?" He blushed slightly. He was grateful he had not been drinking, or he might have choked. He shook his head. "No, child," he said. "Your mother and I, we didn't meet physically until at least 2 years after you were born." The girl frowned. "Do you know who my father was?" Again, he shook his head. "That is something you need to ask your mom about. She likely knows more than I." The girl nodded. She stepped back and closed her eyes. Finn felt the force swirl around the girl, drawn by her. Again, he was impressed. Bliss was far more powerful than most younglings her age. "You are in pain," she murmured. "You mourn." He nodded. "James Dar Ben was my master. He was like a father to me." The girl looked puzzled. "Why be sad?" she asked. "All that was his is now yours. The apprentice becomes the master. That is the way of things." "The ways of the Jedi and the Sith are not the same, child." She gave him an arch look. "You are not a Jedi." The statement shook him. What? What did she mean? "I can feel the darkness within you. It makes you strong." Before he could protest, tell her that she was wrong, she reached out and touched his hand. He gasped. He felt. Ugh. It was the strangest of sensations. He felt the shadow wrap around him, and in that brief moment, he felt his pain and loss vanish. What replaced it was something else. Something soothing. He took a shuddering breath. Amazing. Possessiveness, desire, lust, his mind filled with thoughts of all he had gained since opening himself up to Avi. She, they? He blinked and looked down at the girl. "What did you do?" "I am my mom's little girl," she replied. "She controls energy. So do I command the electrical impulses of the body. I can bring out dozens of different emotions, simply by stimulating the minds of others." He chuckled. He felt almost high. "The next Avaryss here." The girl shook her head. "I am not near that powerful, but with time and training, I could be." Her smile turned wicked. "I once killed one of my instructors with my power. I was 7, she confessed." She giggled. Grandpa Fear was most pleased. Finn pulled away from her touch. She. What? The girl blinked. Did I do wrong?" He swallowed hard. Already enjoying murder at 7 years old. He was horrified. "I will need to help this girl," he realized. If the alliance between the Sith and the Republic was to hold, the Sith would need to learn. Bliss was young. He could teach her. "Were you in danger?" he asked, "when you killed the man?" She nodded. "He was looking at us funny. He tried to come in while we were asleep. He wanted things. I hid in the closet and seized him before he knew I was there. I overloaded his mind. He didn't even know where he was at the end. He died smiling. It was a mercy of sorts. Jir never leaves the dead smiling. He is the only one who smiles. Finn frowned. He was not sure what to make of that. It seems that not only Avi needed him. Her kids, these children, they were the future. He could mold them into the new Sith that Avi wanted. Ones that stood for the Alliance and were strong enough to defend it against those that would oppose it. I can't do it, he realized. I can't teach them. He reached out and touched the girl's cheek. She leaned in accepting the brief show of affection. You have great potential, he said. Your mom will show you how to use it, in time. Will you teach me to, master? She asked eagerly. If you would like. She nodded, smiling brightly, the innocent smile of a 10-year-old. That smile is a mask, something within him warned. It may look like a little girl, but she let you see her true face for a moment. She is a killer, and if you are not careful, you will become one too. Finn tried to ignore that voice. It sounded familiar, the woman's voice he had heard on and off since Tatooine. Did he really need it? Did he really wish to second-guess himself? Bliss didn't seem to sense the conflict going on within him. She showed only a child's smile. You should speak with my mom tonight, she said. I think she would like that. Finn nodded as the girl hurried off, going back to speak with Zen and Barrick. Finn shook his head. He looked down at his hand, where the girl had touched him. Now that she was gone, that same sense of unease and distrust returned. He frowned. I can't do this, he realized. Not now. He left the mess hall. He didn't want to be around the survivors right now. He didn't want to sense their emotions, their questioning thoughts. He needed something more, something comforting. He knew right where to go to get it. Avi had left the mess earlier. He had seen her go. Now, he followed. He didn't need to ask if anyone had seen her. He knew right where she was. He went to her quarters. He didn't need to knock. The door slid open almost as soon as he stood before it. She was kneeling on the floor, her eyes closed, and a sly smile on her face. So, she purred, you wish to come in. He grinned. It was amazing how the most innocent things could sound suggestive. In this, she was right. Here, in this moment, he didn't feel judged. He could make her better, he thought, and together, we will make the whole galaxy better. The door slid shut behind him, and in that moment, he realized that they were not alone. Taya was there as well. His grin turned cruel. So it was like that, was it? Fine. I asked Taya to join us, Avi said, rising. Taya slipped in behind him. He could feel her breath, warm on his neck. We hope you don't mind, the blonde said in a husky voice. No complaints here, he said, taking Avi into his arms. He kissed her chastely, once, twice, 3 times. Taya moved around beside him. Poor Finn, she whispered, so lost without your teacher. We can help, if you let us. Show you that you aren't alone, Avi added, even as he leaned over and kissed Taya. A shiver of desire ran down his spine. This was what he wanted. Here, with him, there was no judgment, and no second guessing. Here, he was in control. Avi and Taya expected it, and desired it. He was more than happy to oblige. So, he growled, starting into their eyes, blue and yellow, looking into his own yellow glowing orbs. What can you two do for me, to make me feel better? They looked at each other and giggled like 2 innocent peasant girls. Come with us, Taya said, drawing him closer to the bed. Yes, Avi hissed. There is much we have to show you. Finn didn't resist. He didn't want to. Go ahead, ladies, he replied. I'm yours. Chapter 64. She lay in his arms, lost in that moment between waking and sleep. Darth Avaryss smiled contently. She was enjoying the feel of him, the thump of his heart, the feel of his skin, and his breath warming her neck. Yet, it was far more than that. They were truly together in the Force. It surrounded them, and bound them together like a silken tether, tangling them up until there was no her or him, but something that was both, something glorious. She snuggled amongst the sheet, not the silk she had enjoyed back on Drummond Cos, but this was nice too, made even more so by the company. For once, she had let her guard down, and it felt good, safe. A lie, true, but one she wished to enjoy, at least for a few more moments. She almost giggled. This is the way it should be, she thought. The way it should have always been. She sighed and moved against him. Even now she could feel his body responding. He was not awake yet, but soon would be. They had made love twice tonight already. Once when he first came to her, and again when she had awoken and found him pleasuring Taya. Of course, she couldn't just go back to sleep after that. The sight aroused her. She rose, putting her arms around him, and demanded attention. As always, Finn rose to the challenge. Jedi stamina was good for something, after all. She pulled his arm closer, enjoying the scent of him, the maleness of it. It reminded her of her time with Fel, only better. Better because there was no initial distrust. We were always part of each other, and we always will be. Oh yes. This was nice, far better than anything she had had in the past. Fel had come the closest, but he had not shared the connection with her that she and Finn possessed. No, this was different better. Finn knew her in ways that Fel had only begun to explore when he had been taken from her, but even that had been the will of the Force, she realized. Without Fel, she would not have understood the desire for physical love, or how to bring her lover to where he needed to be. Well, she had learned, and it was safe to say that Finn had no complaints. She shifted again, sensing him just starting to rise from sleep. She was ready again. She was not tired, and there was a pleasant soreness between her legs, one that she had come to not only endure, but enjoy. The price of being with the one that I was meant to be with. No deceptions, and no distractions. We are one. We have always been one. She pulled his hand to her mouth, gently kissing his fingers, moving her lips over them. Finn groaned in his sleep, already responding. She gently reached out with the force. She let her emotions flow outward, desire, want, and need. She paused, realization struck her. They were not alone. It wasn't Taya, no, her friend had left shortly before she had fallen back asleep. Besides, Taya would have responded positively to her waking Finn, knowing what was to come. No, this presence was cold, disappointed, and she frowned. Very familiar. She stayed perfectly still, not wishing to tip her hand too soon. She had not felt her old rival's approach. Her mind had been on other things. She was fully awake now, measuring risk and coming to a decision. How best to respond to this intrusion. Had this been Sith space, had she been interrupted in her own holdings, the intruder would not have left alive, but here, she needed to be more careful. Besides, she was curious. How did she make it back undetected? Where had she been? Why was she here? Avaryss gently moved Finn's arm off her and sat up. She wore nothing, of course, but that didn't mean that she was harmless. She stared into the darkness without concern for threat or modesty. Show yourself then, she thought. I know you are here. She turned her head and saw it. Two yellow eyes watching from the shadows. They were not Sith eyes, no, these were feral, eyes not born, but created. A beast's eyes. A mongrel-less eyes. Did you enjoy the show? She asked dryly. A disappointed snort emerged from the near-human muzzle. Didn't see anything, the other woman responded, her voice a low, angry growl. The beast girl showed teeth, her fangs white and sharp. Only just arrived a few minutes ago. Was looking for Finn. I felt Master Jazz and thought he might need someone to talk to. Avaryss sneered. She looked down at her sleeping lover. As you can see, he doesn't, she smirked. So you can go now, mongrel. I'm sure Finn will be happy to see you in a few hours. Now, the mongrel, Shireville did growl. No, you don't have a few more hours, which someone is here to see you. You are going to want to hear what she has to say. Finn too. Finn groaned and shook his head. He opened his eyes and looked up, waking with a start. Shira, he gasped. If she felt anything for startling her friend, she didn't show it. She continued to radiate controlled anger and disappointment. disappointment directed at her friend. "Hello, Finn," she responded. "It seems that I've interrupted your morning." Finn didn't say anything. He should have been angry at the creature sneaking in here like this. Interrupting them, another Sith male would have been angry. Avi was certainly angry. Through their connection, the Dark Lord could sense guilt in her lover. That didn't please her. Guilt. Why? Was it not natural to seek comfort from a loved one after a tragedy? A tragedy that was as useful as it was painful. The three faced each other. Shira looked at Finn. Once she had desired him, Avi remembered that. Did she feel a sense of betrayal in seeing him with her rival, even though the beast had moved on with her nerdy little doctor? Regardless, Avaryss was not intimidated. "Shira," Finn said, now fully awake, covering his modesty with a single blanket. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. The beast girl gestured with the force, turning on the lights, letting the two lovers get a better look at her. The sleeveless combat suit she wore looked familiar, but Avi wasn't sure from where. Her brown fur had been shaved on her left arm, the cold toe patches marked where the beast had received medical attention. If she was still injured, she didn't show it, her eyes shifting from yellow to the familiar brown as her face resumed its more human-like features. "I have arrived with Gabe Cooper," she informed them. "He brought us here from his base. We hoped to make it before the funeral, but—" She kept her gaze locked on Avaryss, her expression cold and menacing. Her eyes then fell to Finn. "You two need to get dressed. We have company, Finn. Master Jazz would have expected you to receive them, and you definitely will want to hear what she has to say." Avi frowned. "She." Finn cleared his throat and shook his head. Suddenly he was all business. "We will be out shortly," he informed her, "if you would be so good to wait outside." Shira nodded and bounded out of the room, shifting back to her beast form, moving on all fours. The door opened and shut with a hiss, leaving the two lovers alone. Avaryss' eyes narrowed. What was this now? She reached out with the force, sensing a new presence, one that was familiar, but not. "It seems that I have business," Finn responded, rising from the bed, scooping up his clothes. Avi glared at the closed door. "It never fails," she thought angrily. "Every time I feel safe, every time I think happiness might be possible." Her hands curled into clenched fists. She wasn't really sure what the mongrel's game was, and if she was being perfectly honest, she didn't care. Something had changed, something that moved against her desires, her plans. She would need to deal with it swiftly. The end game was nearly here. She would not be stopped now. She had come too far, and too close. No. She wouldn't be stopped now. They were waiting for him in the mess hall. Finn tugged at his shirt. He had dressed quickly after being startled out of a sound sleep by Shria. Even now, that interruption annoyed him. What had she been playing at? Shira could be terse sometimes. She had done her best to work on that. But simply sneaking into his room without even a knock. Intolerable. Avi walked at his side. He could feel her anger smoldering through their connection. He knew that Shira didn't like her, but that was no excuse for such rudeness. He paused when he entered the mess. Colonel Capistan was there. Shira stood to his left, next to a woman in a full hood and cloak, a woman whose face he couldn't see. Cooper stood to the right, clad all in black, shirt, trousers, and vest. Some of Finn's anger cooled. The old smuggler didn't look well. Why would he? His conscience chided. Jazz had been a brother to him. They had known each other for close to 60 years, and spent much of their youth working together. Why wouldn't the old man be in mourning? "Captain," Finn called out, feeling more sympathetic now that he could see the pain in the old man's eyes. "Hey, kid," he said, not even trying to hide it, keeping his voice light. "Sorry we're late." "You are here?" Finn reminded him. "Your presence honors my master's memory. Trust that he would be grateful for your coming, and that his love and respect for you remain to the end." The old man chuckled at that. "Not sure about the respect thing," he replied, "but it is good to hear that my brother is so honored by his friends and student." "Captain," Avi said, her voice colder than most would have expected, given the circumstances. She looked at the chrono on the wall. It was still 3 more hours until sunrise. She glared at the smuggler and his party. The circumstances of your arrival aside, may I ask what this is about? Surely this could have waited until morning. Timing is everything, my lord, the hooded woman answered, her voice that of one raised on drum and cuss. But you understand that more than most. Your own timing was almost flawless up to this point, was it not? Finn blinked. He knew that voice. Avi gave the woman an arch look. You have me at a disadvantage, she said, and you are. The woman turned her head and lowered her cloak, revealing shoulder-length blonde hair, an attractive face with pale skin, and the burning yellow eyes of a Sith. The face of Lana Benico, her dark red lips formed into a deep frown. Finn blinked. Miss Benico, it is a pleasure to speak with you in person, at long last. The former head of Sith intelligence turned to him. Ah, you must be Finn Shadowstone. Captain Cooper and Master Shira have talked about you. She paused, looking him up and down, evaluating him, perhaps. Her gaze falling on his Sith eyes so close to her own. Most unusual for a Jedi, she murmured. He didn't need to guess what she meant. Finn's brow furrowed. Something was not right here. Talked about me. Miss Benico, you know me. We have spoken several times during briefings. You have offered up much to us, and been an ally to both Master Jazz and the survivors for several months. Again, the blonde Sith's eyes fell on Avaryss. I'm afraid that things have not been what they seemed, young Jedi. You would be surprised to know that this is the first time that we have spoken. In fact, I was not aware that the survivors had been so active until a few short weeks ago. She turned to Colonel Capistan. Captain Cooper has informed me of what has been going on. Colonel, I am not sure who it is you have been speaking with, but I can assure you that it was not me. Again her eyes fell on Avi. His lover held that gaze. Her expression was neutral, but inside, Finn could sense her rage through their connection, her furious storm held only in check by his lover's iron will. Had they not been here, she would have attacked Benico, torn her to shreds, or at least tried to. What? Finn, he didn't know what to say. He looked at Avi. He wanted to pull her aside, demand an explanation. Avi, what is she talking about? What is going on? Avaryss smiled, a cold acidic smile. Her eyes moved from Cooper to Shira and then to Colonel Capistan. Finn felt her reach out with the Force, seeking aid. Shira must have sensed it too. Don't bother, she growled. Your people are all unconscious. Unhurt, but unable to respond. Stun gas was released into their rooms before I went to find you. On whose orders? Finn demanded. He didn't like this. Technically, he had taken Jazz's place. He should have been consulted before. It was my call, kid, Capistan informed him. We will discuss it later if you want, but considering what has been going on, I thought it safer to act quickly. Neither he or Avi answered. Could Finn understand? Sure, but he would have never authorized such a move, not before hearing what was going on. That is why they acted, the woman's voice in his head sang out. Can you honestly say your judgment hasn't been compromised in this? Do you really think that the colonel acted rashly? Finn considered it. No, he realized that the colonel had not been wrong. He might not agree, or even like it, but the call had been his to make. Avi didn't seem extremely bothered by it. If anything, she seemed resolved. Perhaps she had even suspected that something like this might happen, eventually. Finn looked at the three facing them, Avi's accusers. Them, and the newly arrived Lana Benico. She said that it had not been she who had been working with them, but if not her, then who? He was not sure what to say. Shira's expression remained hostile. Cooper appeared merely curious. The colonel kept his expression guarded, but Finn could sense a hint of betrayal. We need to talk, my lord, Benico said flatly. There are matters that need to be discussed. Now. Avaryss smirked and looked down at the floor. I couldn't agree more, Miss Benico, she answered. Finn's brow furrowed. What the hell was going on? Avi gestured for the other Sith to take the lead. After you, of course. Lana crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. No, after you, Councilor, she replied. From the looks on the faces of both Shira and the Colonel, this was not a request. Avi shrugged. As you wish, she answered. So be it. Heads will roll. That was the thought that came to mind as Avaryss sat waiting in the survivor's interrogation room. She slouched in a chair, rubbing at her neck, which was still sore. She had agreed to the injection that Dr. Tagg had given her, the chemical cocktail already working its way through her blood. She remained lucid, but would not be able to summon the emotion to activate her force abilities. The drug was pleasant in its own way. It left her with a sense of euphoria as it took effect, a high that passed quickly, leaving her calm, but unable to touch the force. Far gentler than the Sith poisons she had been exposed to in the past. She had not resisted. She had even insisted that the survivors take the step. She told them she had nothing to hide. A lie? True, but a necessary one. Time was what was important right now. She needed to stall, give her people at Sanctuary Base time to move to the next phase. She couldn't count on her allies here. No doubt they were waking from their stun gas-induced naps to find their own force powers blocked by the drug that was currently affecting her. It was annoying, but for the moment, she had to trust in the officers that she had put in charge of her holdings. Her powers would be hers again, soon enough, but for the moment she had to play along. She could endure a bit of force blindness if it bought her what she needed to achieve victory. Plus, it kept the survivors off balance. That was never a bad thing when dealing with one's enemies. But were they enemies? She would know soon enough, and so would they. Let's hope, she thought, that they make the right choice. The only choice? She had surprised them. It is what they would have suggested had she not done so. They had thought she would fight against it, expected her to protest. Why? This outcome had not been unanticipated, but she had hoped to have had more time. Shira's return, somehow making contact with the real Benico. The two of them reaching Captain Cooper, a series of events, clearly brought together by the light side of the Force. Seeking to impede her plans, to throw chaos on both her mission and her relationship with Finn. She smiled slightly. No matter. Despite the problems, things were still going well. Holly knew that they had all 5 keys. Colonel Capistan himself had sent off a message to her, and her guise as Lana Benico. She knew what the plan was, and was, hopefully, at this moment, putting the next stage into motion. Avi only hoped that she would not try to contact the survivors for verification. That conversation could be a bit awkward with the real Lana here. The Dark Lord frowned. Damn the officers she had placed in charge of her assassination section at Sanctuary Base. The real Lana should have been dead months ago. Holly should have had full control over what was left of Imperial intelligence. The agent sent to do the job would need to be eliminated. The officers who trained them, well, she would need to evaluate them before making a snap judgment. If they showed even a hint of incompetence, they would be killed too. She pursed her lips. Those that she killed, their families would have to be eliminated as well. She would tolerate no chance of reprisal. In this, her master had been right. Eliminating the families of potential rivals was wise. After all, had he done that correctly, she never would have risen to destroy everything he had worked for and claimed the remnant for her own. His failure was a monument to her success. An hour had passed before Lana and Colonel Capistan had come to see her. They had waited until the drug had fully taken effect. She looked up as they entered, offered a polite smile. "Where's Finn?" she asked. Should he not be part of this conversation? The colonel frowned. "Finn has decided to sit this one out," the soldier informed her. "He is watching, though, on the cams." She looked up and smiled at the device, then turned her attention to Lana. "I'm curious to hear what this woman has told you," she admitted. Lana didn't answer. She let the colonel take the lead. The old soldier didn't look happy. "Who have we been talking to these last few months, Avi?" Capistan asked her. The Dark Lord shrugged. "Lana Benico. I assumed." The real Lana frowned. "You expect me to believe you had no hand in this?" she asked. Again, Avaryss shrugged. "I assumed what the survivors assumed. I heard rumors of you trying to form an alliance against the invaders, I also know that you have not been having much luck. Few people trust Imperial intelligence. Not that I blame them. The Dark Lord chuckled. Imperial lack of intelligence, some of the common soldiers call it. If Lana was insulted, she didn't show it, she didn't even respond to the jibe. I know your people were trying to assassinate me, Avaryss. Again she shrugged. Try proving it. Colonel Capistan frowned. What is Sanctuary Base, Avaryss? She showed no sign of concern as she regarded the colonel. She just kept smiling. He knew some things, she realized. Lana had told them some of her plans, but not all. That was okay, she thought. Stall. Just stall. Sanctuary Base was a dream of mine, she replied, but it has no relevance here. How do you figure? The colonel asked. She shrugged. You are judging me for having my own agenda. Why? You knew that I had my own plans the moment that I walked into this base. Yet, I have never disobeyed an order, nor refused to aid an ally when they needed it. She pinned him with an accusing glare. Did you forget that it was Finn, and that saved the life of your former lover? Galadriel Locke would have died on Tatooine if it wasn't for us. You have my gratitude for that, he replied. Yet, you still seek to condemn me. Lana interrupted, stopped the colonel before he could answer her. He is merely being cautious, Councilor, and with good reason, given your crimes. The Dark Lord snorted. Crimes? If you mean my alliance with the survivors, then I accept that accusation. At least, they have not given up, and are still resisting the invaders. It is not your alliance with the survivors that I'm referring to, Lana said. It is your violation of the Nathema Accords. You violated the very oath you swore when you joined the Dark Council. Avaryss' eyes narrowed. The Nathema Accords. That is what you seek to charge me with. The blonde Sith glared. You are guilty of carrying out a Class 3 ritual without the permission of either the Council or the Pyramid of Knowledge. A ritual that you used to save your life. Do you deny the charge? Avi sneered. Really? A Class 3 ritual. Again the Council underestimates me. The ritual that she used was a Class 5 easy, but that was neither here nor there. Capistan looked at Benico. What is the Nathema Accords? He asked. A law passed by the Dark Council centuries ago, she informed him. It was designed to prevent another Sith from using a forbidden ritual to increase their power. It was designed to prevent anyone from growing strong enough to challenge the Emperor, Avaryss clarified. The Emperor suggested the Accords. I'm sure he had no desire to see another Lord try to step on his godhood. Avi snorted. The Council had never wanted to risk the creation of a second immortal Sith. They had passed the law to prevent another mass ritual like the one that had been performed by Vitiate on his home world of Nathema. It had made him immortal, almost a god. Surely the Council must have realized that that had not been her goal. She had only wished to be healthy, strong, for Finn. Always for Finn. It was the way. The galaxy. Her lover, they needed her, and she had needed to survive. She made no excuse. She would not be judged, not by the Council, or anyone else. Especially not Lana Benico. The woman wasn't even a proper Sith. She snarled at her. Those Accords are Bantha Poodoo, and you know it, Benico. They are the law. A true Sith Lord is above such drivel. Lana sniffed. Do you deny the charges, my lord? Avaryss didn't respond. How dare this little creature seek to judge her? Her. She was a Dark Lord of the Sith. She didn't answer to the laws of sentient beings. She was far beyond their concept of right and wrong. Lana leaned in. You sacrificed 1,000 of your own people, she hissed. Do you deny that? Capistan's eyes widened. She did what? Put 1,000 people to death, to perform some healing ritual. Is that not so, Avaryss? Avaryss sneered. Try proving it, she spat. Lana sneered back. That is easy enough. Before I left Imperial service, I read reports from your home world, intel gathered by Imperial agents within the Oradana resistance. They managed to save a few dozen of your would-be victims. Their testimony was all the Council needed to condemn you, my lord. Avaryss frowned. She had not had the full number of sacrifices during the ritual. Did that explain why she had lingering memories and experiences from her host body? If so, she smiled again. Heads would roll. Whoever betrayed her would answer in blood. Everyone on Ardana, anyone that helped try and spoil her ritual, and those rats who sang to Imperial intelligence. They would pay. They would all suffer. She was furious, but again, she hated. Cold hate was better than wild rage. It was a scalpel, and that was better than a bomb, sometimes. Sometimes. Again, she didn't rise to Lana's accusations. She felt no shame, and why should she? They were just mundanes, their very lives existed to serve the Sith. Still, she considered what Lana had said. In that moment, she had realization. Yes, everything made sense. That is why I was betrayed on Phallus, wasn't it? She asked. Acina used my violation to convince the others to deny my reinforcements. It was not Acina, Lana informed her. It was Lord Mar himself. He was not pleased that you overstepped your bounds. Had you needed help, you should have come to him. He saw himself as your mentor, and you betrayed him. That realization shook her. Mar okayed her betrayal. He was willing to lose Phallus, the Empire's primary source of fresh water, just to punish her. The fool. Beniko stood up straight, her expression cold and imperious. And now you have convinced the survivors into helping you gain these artifacts, these keys. She gave the Dark Lord a cold stare. What is next, Councilor? Another ritual. Avaryss didn't respond. What could she say? She wanted to tell the woman everything. Let her bask in the power of Avi's coming success, but no. Patience was better. Cold was better. Patience. Stall, she thought to herself. She still needed to buy time. She needed to stall. She looked up at the holocam. What I have done in the past is not relevant, she shouted. Finn, hear me. She swallowed and looked as pained as she could. She needed to sell this. Her lover needed to believe it. I did what I had to do. I had to save my life. I make no excuses. If I obeyed the Council's rules, they would never have given me permission. I would have died. Even if they had said yes, I would have died. She glared at Beniko. Mar would have assigned members of the Pyramid of Knowledge who would have sabotaged the ritual. They would have called in an accident, I'm sure, but I still would have died, and they would have claimed all my holdings and research for themselves. She turned again to the camera. I promised that I would only take the keys if you gave them to me, and I hold true to that. Know this, if you let Lana take me back to the Empire, then all that we have planned for it will be lost. I will be executed, and when the Zack will fall, the war will begin again. Only this time, the Council will have access to all my work, and perhaps the keys as well. She shook her head. Are you prepared to let that happen? I offer you a real peace, a chance to end the fighting between the Empire and the Republic. That is enough, Avaryss, Lana said. Is it? She hissed back. I think not. She looked at Colonel Capistan. What I've done or not done is irrelevant. You have the chance to win the war, Colonel. The Republic is not worthy of your loyalty. They have surrendered twice, betrayed you and your friends twice. Given up on 2 wars, we can change that. We can win. I can win. Join me, and we will end this destructive conflict. We will end the Zakuul and bring order to the galaxy. The Colonel didn't respond. Avaryss frowned. She had hoped for more, but probably she shouldn't have. She again looked at the cam. She knew Finn was watching. She could feel it. I'm your last chance, Finn. Avaryss, Lana said coldly. The Dark Lord ignored her. I'm the last chance for peace. That enough, Avi, Capistan said. You know that I'm right, Finn. Avi. Councilor. You must choose, Finn. Avi. She rose from her chair. Choose. Peace or a war without end. Finn. Choose. Chapter 65. He had not slept. Finn had spent the night debating what had happened. On some level, he agreed with it. If Avi had done half the things that Lana said, if she had. He had frowned. No. There had to be more to it than that. He didn't believe her capable of it. Her master had pushed her down the dark path. The old man had forced dark choices upon her again and again. Had she not proved that? Had she not proved that she was willing to change, that she wished to be more? After watching her interrogation over the holo, he had sought out her fellows. Most had been awake by that point, awake, but cut off from the Force. He had explained that this was not his doing, that something more was going on, and that Lana Beniko had come, and things had become more complicated. Avi's brother had been the most agitated. He had openly accused the Jedi and survivors of betrayal. Zen had calmed him down, reminded him that they had come here with a purpose, that Avi trusted Finn. She had smiled then. "I'm sure you will do the right thing, Finn," she had said with a sly smile. The creature Abominus had been enraged. It was furious to wake up and find itself cut off from the Force, yet, even as it simmered in its rage, it could not touch him. Avi had ordered it not to harm him, or the survivors without her say-so. "You are lucky, little Jedi," the beast had hissed. "If not for my master's orders, well, things would not go well for you if those orders weren't there." He had expected that from the monster, but the worst had come from Taya and Zay. They had been with the survivors the longest, and had the closest ties to the group, next to Avi. "The group must come first," Taya had said coldly. "Security, and all that, I'm sure." From the betrayal in her eyes, Finn doubted she would be as warm with him as she had been. He wished that she could understand. This wasn't his fault. "How can you do this?" Zay demanded, her green eyes filling with unshed tears. "We're your allies, are we not?" "Things will get sorted out," he had promised the girl. Zay said nothing else. She just glared defiantly, rubbing her neck where Dr. Tag had injected her. Finn had left, only after getting assurance that the Sith here would not cause any trouble. They would wait for Avi for their orders. Timon had stopped him in the hall. He had been on his way to visit Zay when the gas had first been introduced into the Sith barracks. The boy had been angry about Zay's treatment, how the rest of the group was looking at their Sith allies like criminals, and all because of something that Lana Beniko had said. Finn, for his part, had been a bit intimidated by his student's anger. Once, that wouldn't have been the case, but the fact that the boy now towered over him and was starting to fill out with muscle. Few would not be intimidated by the tall young half-blood. Finn had played the Jedi Master card. He had reminded his apprentice to maintain his Jedi calm. Things were not what they seemed, he told him. The boy didn't know about the false Lana who had brought them into Avi's web. He didn't know about the ritual, or the other suspicious points that the real Lana had brought up. The boy had retreated, but his accusations had still stung, which had led Finn here. He had spent the entire night in his master's office, first meditating, but then rising to pace, unable to quiet his mind. He had been so sure that they had been doing the right thing. They had kept the keys from falling into the hands of Zakul. Avi had seemed so committed to the survivors. He had believed her, and more to the point, believed in her. It wasn't simply because they had become lovers. He felt complete for the first time in his life. Yes, the change in his eyes and his growing anger was troubling, but he had dealt with his anger before. He thought he could do so again. It should have been simple, and it had been, until Beniko had showed up with Cooper. They had shattered what he believed, and in its place, only one thing remained. Doubt. It was not something that Finn was used to. He had always tried to trust in the Force, and in his master. He had trusted in his training to figure out what was right, and how best to proceed. The Jedi teachings and Jazz guidance had given him faith, certainty. Now, Master Jazz was gone. As for the certainty of the Jedi teachings, he no longer felt it. He rose again and paced in Jazz's office, thinking on what he had seen on the holocam. Avi pleading with him to make up his own mind and choose the best course of action. What was that, though, he wondered. He knew the plan, what Master Jazz and Colonel Capistan had come up with. He wanted to trust in that plan. The keys of Hikitas needed to be moved to a secure location, destroyed there, if needed, but... His eyes narrowed. He could not deny that Avi had made valid points. The Republic had lost 2 wars in his lifetime. Were they worthy of his faith? As for Avi, had she not delivered on everything she had said she could? She had kept her word in everything she had done since coming here. She had fought beside them, bled beside them, and she had even aided him in saving Major Locke's life. Didn't that count for something? Didn't she deserve the benefit of the doubt? He shook his head, trying to move past the sense of frustration that, even now, threatened to cloud his judgment. She had done everything we asked of her. She has not tried to harm any of us. In fact, she hasn't even lied to us since coming here. Yet, how could he explain away what Miss Benico had told them? If she was telling the truth, and there were few reasons why she would lie, the survivors taking up this fight, recruiting Avi and her allies, and every mission offered to them by her mysterious double had been a lie. The only question now was, why? What did Avi stand to gain by all this? Why the deception? The Zakuul needed to be stopped. Did it really matter how they got here? As for the survivors, they were here, and committed. It wasn't like they could just stop. In fact, now that she knew about them, and what was going on, Lana had formally reached out, offering them a place in the alliance she was trying to build. A decent idea, Finn had to admit, but that cooperation did come with some strings. Miss Benico didn't wish any further involvement with Avi and her loyalists. He hadn't discussed it with Colonel Capistan, but he couldn't see how the man would accept. Avi was one of them after all. Finn frowned. But what if Chris thought it worth the risk? Benico did have contacts that Avi didn't. What if the Colonel decided to say yes to Lana's offer? Where did that leave Avi? Lana believed that she had been sending assassins after her these last few months. Avi had not admitted to it, but she had not denied it either. Miss Benico thought it wise that Avi be turned over to the Empire, and not simply because of the attempts on her life. Avi had committed crimes against her own people, and according to Lana, deserved to be punished for that. Finn frowned at that thought. Since when did the survivors care about crimes committed against the Sith Empire? Whatever her reasons for joining them, Avi was one of them now, a survivor. Didn't she deserve the same protection they afforded everyone else here? His hands curled into fists. How dare Lana think they would just sell out one of their own? Even if Finn hadn't been sleeping with her, he would not have allowed that. She was one of them, wasn't she? And what about Taya and Zay? How would they react to him making such a choice? No. No. He wouldn't do that to her. He couldn't. Benico didn't understand, and why would she? She wasn't a part of this group. She. 1,000 lives, boy. The words echoed through his mind. He could almost see the speaker, the blue woman that had been appearing to him on and off since Tatooine. He could hear the concern in her voice and the worried expression on her face. She took 1,000 innocent lives to save herself. What else might she do? Does she seem remorseful for those deaths? Does she even think on them? Finn blinked and shook his head. How did they know that Lana wasn't lying about that? How did they know she didn't have some deal with whatever was left of the Dark Council? Then don't turn her over, the voice responded. Keep her here until the keys are gone and out of her reach forever. People can change, and they can find their way back into the light, but they have to desire to change. They have to want to change. Finn considered that. He could do that. They could just keep Avi here until True was away with the keys. If she truly meant what she said, then things would go back to normal. They would continue the fight against the Zakuul, slowing their advance, buying time for a real resistance to form against Arkin. Even if Lana rejected them, left them out of whatever group she was forming, they could still aid in the fight. He took a deep breath and tried to center himself. He could stay with Avi. He could continue to be with Taya when she wanted. He could protect her, protect them both. They could keep the dream of a more enlightened Sith Empire alive. But was that what Avi really wanted? Was that just some ploy to get the survivors to cooperate? He could no longer say for certain. Yet, he could not prove it was a lie either. No, he would remain committed to what he and Avi had discussed. He nodded, becoming more and more sure of himself and his choice. Whatever the path, he could stay with her, make sure that she remained true to her promises. He could guide Avi down a path that would not be so dark. He could check the worst of her dark side impulses. He could be there for jeer and bless. The children needed a guiding hand, didn't they? He could offer that support. Help them become the Sith that galaxy needed, ones who accepted that the darkness was not the only way. He could help Avi make the Empire better and bring about a lasting peace. He stopped his pacing and looked down at the empty chair, the one that he had seen his master sit in so many times before. "What would you do?" he asked, even though he knew he would get no answer. Finn Shadowstone sighed. It would have been nice had things still been simple, but there was nothing simple outside the confines of the Order. The real world was not as organized as a Jedi temple. I'm trying here, Master. I want to be true to your ideals, to lead this group as well as you did. Am I really leading, though? The thought came unbidden, but he could not deny it. The others know about you, and Avi, and likely you and Taya too. Do you really think they would trust you knowing what was happening? Did they trust you when they decided to immobilize Avi's people, before Shira came to find you? No, he realized. No, they didn't. He was no fool. Had they not betrayed him? Did they no longer trust him? It seemed possible. His anger continued to grow. Maybe they saw him as no better than one of Avi's Sith. Maybe they thought him already her servant. If that was so, what place did he even have here? Had the survivors turned against him? Had Shira? Had Timon? Would it not be better to try and find his own path? Why not give Avi a chance to do what she needed to do? Why not give her the keys and let the dice fall as they would? Maybe. Knock. Knock. He jumped at the sound. He had been so lost in his own thoughts that he hadn't even realized someone had come to the door. He glared. Yes. The door opened, and Shira Ville came in. She gave him a wry smile. "See," she purred, "I do know how to knock." He rolled his eyes and looked away, still not entirely pleased with her interruption yesterday. "Yes," he said more politely. "What is it?" "We just heard back from Tara. She has linked up with True and is bringing her back here. They should arrive in about 2 hours." Finn nodded. Yes, that was part of the plan. Does True and Mox know why they are coming, where they are supposed to take the keys? Master Jazz already told them what was going on, before he. Shira paused and looked away. Finn could sense her pain, the pain that he shared. "Yet, you were just considering betraying that plan," the blue woman's voice chimed in. "You need to remain strong, boy. Remember who you are." Finn nodded thoughtfully. It didn't seem that Shira had hurt her. Good, he thought. Focus. He looked down at his master's desk. There were a few things that he wished for True to take with her when she left. Things that he wanted her to drop off on Bantoon after the keys were safely dealt with. Jazz's lightsaber was the first among those items. It belonged with his family, and to sit in a place of honor, a symbol for all that he had tried to do for his wife's people. He would also need to return the beck and call for Jazz's ship. Finn wasn't sure where the Nightfire was at that moment. If CC had taken it home, or if the droid was off on his own somewhere. Regardless, Jazz's belongings should go back to his family. His children would decide how best to deal with them. His thoughts drifted to Bayla, and her offer for him to join them. He and Bayla had always been friends, even when he had rejected her all those years ago. He had hurt her, but they had remained friends over the years. They rebuilt what they had had as children. She had never judged him. It would be nice to feel that again, and besides, her father's lightsaber should go to her. It had been the first Jedi weapon the girl had ever held. She had begun to learn the Shicho from her father. Finn had been there. They had trained together. Thinking of his times on Bantoon, it brought back some of the best memories he had of his master. It helped center him. Finn took a deep breath and felt more in control. He looked up. Shira was watching him, her expression that of concern and worry. He frowned. What? She began. Go ahead, he demanded. Speak your mind. She winced, showing her upper fangs over her lower lip. I don't like what I'm sensing when I look at you, Finn. You are in conflict, and you shouldn't be. The beast girl frowned. Whatever is going on with you and the witch, You need to let it go. There is far more going on here than you realize. You need to be careful. Finn's eyes narrowed. I have it under control. Her eyes narrowed, brown slowly fading to yellow. Do you? He looked up fiercely. You're judging me. I'm trying to help you. It doesn't feel like that. Sometimes help is not always welcome. Sometimes people try to resist. So what is this, then? Some kind of intervention. It is a friend reaching out to another, trying to get him to see that he is playing with fire, and he could get burned, very badly. He picked up Master Jazz's lightsaber, turned it over in his hand. He thought about all the things his master had done in his life, things that the Order disagreed with, but had worked out for the best. I can't check Avi's ambitions, Shira, he informed her. Bring compassion to her rule. Do you honestly think she deserves to rule? Do you honestly think that she is what the galaxy needs sitting on the Sith throne? We know her. We know what she has showed us, both here and what we experienced with her during the war. Finn, we all fought her at one point, everyone but you. The survivors, me, we saw her at her worst, and what she did, those were not the actions of one who wants to be better. She had to play the role her master made her, he said. Does that excuse her cruelties? The pain she inflicted on others? Has she shown any desire to repay the debts that she owes those who suffered? Finn's hands became fists. She is trying. So she says. Finn glared at her, his anger flashing in his glowing eyes. And what about you, Shira? She blinked. Me? Finn nodded. What were you doing while we struggled to recover after Tatooine? Why didn't you try to contact us? We all thought you dead. Finn scowled. How do we know that the Zakuul didn't grab you? How do we know that you aren't simply trying to drive a wedge between Avi and the survivors? Shira growled. You can't sense that I'm not lying. We don't know the full extent of Zakuul Force powers, or maybe it wasn't the Zakuul. What if it was Sith intelligence Lana used to run them? Maybe you were caught and turned. She snarled, her eyes showing both anger and heard it as accusation. I would never join the Empire. They wouldn't have given you a choice. Her frown deepened. I was no shape to travel after the attack, Finn. I was hurt, and sought refuge in a small cave in the wall of Beggar's Canyon. I was still there when Avi dropped her little surprise on the Zakuul. Those falling cargo containers practically collapsed the opening of the cave I took shelter in. It took me days to heal enough to dig my way out. Finn continued to glare, but he was listening, trying to find any sign of deception, perhaps wanting to find one, needing to find one. For the sake of his own peace of mind, and for his desire to remain with Avi. It was easier to see Shira as an enemy, or potential one. She is one of your best friends, the blue woman's voice whispered. She was, Finn thought. She was. It took me days to dig my way out, Shira repeated. I emerged to find a swarm of jaws moving over the battle site. There wasn't much left, but the little scavengers were determined to turn a profit. I offered them payment for transport back to civilization. They brought me to Mos Ela. I'm surprised you would risk it, Finn said. Ela is under Sith control. It was the closest settlement the Jawas were traveling near. Shira sighed. The GMC has a base in Mos Ela. I was hoping to reach Court. I was well enough to travel, but not much more than that. It was while I was in Mos Ela that I encountered Ms. Beniko. She has been pursuing leads on us since the Vildora got blasted. I approached her, thinking that I had found an ally that could help me. That is when she told you that she hasn't been talking with us, Finn said. Shira nodded. I can't say that I was surprised. It was through Lana that I was able to get in contact with Co-op. Why didn't you use one of our rendezvous points? Because I didn't want to lead Lana straight back here, if she was deceiving us. I wanted time to listen and decide for myself, and I didn't mind having Co-op's backing, something that Beniko didn't seem to mind either. Shira frowned. We suspected from the very beginning that Avi was playing us. Beniko showed me what she knew about Avi. It has called a lot of things into question. Finn frowned. Such as, Avi was not as weak as she pretended on Ambria. I've seen transmission logs, Finn. Sith captains talking about Avi having some secret base somewhere. These weren't just transport captains either, Finn. These were men and women in command of dreadnoughts and destroyers. Avi may have as many as 20 capital ships in her fleet, thousands of troopers under her command. Why hide on Ambria if she had that kind of firepower? Why turn to us? I'm sure she has her reasons, he answered. I'm sure she does, Shai growled sarcastically. Finn glared, but let the comment go. Coop provided me with another reason or two to distrust our allies. Zay hasn't been entirely honest with us either. Zay is a kid, he said. That kid is a liar. How do you figure? Coop trusted her to report on Avi's dealings. What she has sent has been nothing of real note. Coop doesn't believe she had been entirely honest. She is Avi's student. Do you think she would tell him everything about her training? There is also the matter of the ship. The ship. The one that Zay left an AR Shadow on. The one her kidnapper used. Shira nodded. That story may not entirely be true. Cooper had the ship dismantled, but before he did, he had a scanning crew on board to see if anything aboard could fetch a higher price. He found something interesting. What? A chemical test of one of the bridge panels. The test confirmed traces of hyperdrive coolant, yarrow root, and kava broth. Finn's brow furrowed. Didn't Zay say that the boy poisoned his whole family? Used a stew to do it. It is not surprising that they found traces of the poison. True, but why would any of the poisoned food be on the bridge? Why would the boy have brought any of poisoned food onto the bridge with him? Finn blinked. He had no answer. Zay said that she was kidnapped, that the pilot poisoned his whole family, a story that fits the evidence, but so do this one. Shira's eyes narrowed. What if Zay poisoned those people? What if they were innocent of any wrongdoing? What if the boy didn't eat, and she had to attack him before he realized what she was done? Coop said he was a fairly large young man. Zay would not have been able to overpower him. Avi sent Zay on a mission to an AR Shadow. Why would she need to take that ship? To kill anyone? Why not simply call for help? What if there had been no mission on an AR Shadow, Finn? What if Avi lied about that? What if sending Zay to an AR Shadow was some kind of Sith trial? The beast girl growled. We know the Sith. We have fought them enough. We both know that Sith apprentices are required to kill an innocent to prove their willingness to join the Order. Taking out an entire family, finding her way back here. That is one hell of a trial for a Sith initiate. Finn considered what she was saying. He hated to admit it, but it made a certain kind of sense. He frowned. He wanted to talk to Zay. Now, she trusted him. If he knew what he was looking for, he might be able to get her to tell the truth about what happened on that transport. If she had murdered those people. If Avi had lied. If... The comm on the desk buzzed. Finn and Shira turned. He reached out with the force, flipping on the switch. Yes. Tara is back, kid. Colonel Capistan's voice filled the room. He has true Halcyon with her. We are ready to get those Sith toys out of here. Finn nodded. Good. Even now, he could feel those keys sinking through his connection to Avi. He shivered. He wanted them gone, far, far away. He took a deep breath. He looked at his friend. Shira gave him an expectant look. Once this matter is tended to, he said, we will need to speak with both Avi and Zay. Shira snorted. That conversation may not be as gentle as you hope. Finn waved his hand dismissively. I can't handle Avi. We have never lied to each other. The two Jedi left the room, Finn pocketing his master's lightsaber and beck and call. It is almost over, he thought. Soon the keys will be out of Avi's reach forever. He was eager to see them gone. He still hoped that Shira and Beniko were wrong. He trusted Avi. He wanted to trust her. He needed to trust her. He needed her. Avaryss sat in her quarters meditating. She breathed in through her nose and out through her mouth. She felt a slight twisting in her stomach, and with it, knowledge. She winced. True Halcyon was here. She sensed the smuggler's arrival, her and her Bothan co-pilot. The Sith smiled. Everything was going according to plan. The end game was finally here. She. Avi gasped as her stomach turned over. She stumbled to her feet, just making it to fresher. Black! She had just made it. She vomited, was sick until her stomach was empty, her heart pounding. She gasped. Why? What the hell was that? She breathed deeply, trying to center herself. She cursed herself for a weak fool. What was that? Nerves. Why? She had faced far greater threats than this, and besides, it wasn't like she was helpless. She rose to her feet, willing her stomach to be calm. She called on the dark side. Her smile returned. His cold embrace washed over her. She felt better, stronger. She looked down at the floor, a loose bolt from one of the fixtures. She raised her hand and twitched her pinky. The bolt jumped. She nodded, pleased. The drug was almost out of her system. She would be at full strength soon. Finn and the others had underestimated her, or rather they underestimated the keys. The keyless toys had been enhancing her powers for months. She was stronger than she had ever been. The drug had dulled her emotions, but the dark side was stronger within her. Even when the drug took full effect, she had still had access to her powers. They had been weakened, but still about 10% of what she was normally. More than enough to use the dark side to burn the drug from her system. She took another deep breath. Her stomach continued to flutter. She tried to ignore it. She focused on what was to come. She could not afford to be sick now. Not on the final morning, her last day on Survivor Base. She smirked. By evening it would all be over. Night was about to fall on these brave, yet naive, rebels. She sat back down, returning to her meditations. Serve or die, pubs, she thought. She hoped that the survivors would make the right choice. She respected them, yes. But respect only went so far. Make the right choice, Colonel, for you and your people, for Gilly. She cackled to herself. Survivors. Well, we will just see about that. Chapter 66. The two ships broke through the atmosphere as the morning sun finally rose above the horizon. Finn rubbed his tired eyes, trying to blink away the burning sensation. He had tried meditation, but it had barely worked. His mind was too busy, his emotions roiling just below the surface. Normally, he would have sought out Avi or Taya. In their arms, he could find rest, but not now. Not now. Not with so many doubting him, doubting his choices. Loyalty. That doubt angered him, and it burned like a brand in his gut. No, he would do what was expected. He could have passed this duty on to Shira or Master Anno, but he didn't dare. Enough people here were questioning his position. He didn't want to give them any more ammunition against him. He still hoped to keep things civil between the survivors and their Sith allies. Staying in a position of control was the best way to accomplish that. Shira glanced over at him, a worried look on her face. It was neither needed or appreciated. Finn frowned. He knew his place, and he knew what was expected of him. He didn't need her to remind him of it. How long has it been since you last saw True? She asked him. Almost 3 years, he replied. He made no mention of the fact what had happened during that last meeting. The fact that he and True had been intimate was none of Shira's business. Not that it had been much when it came to intimacy. They had both been curious about certain matters and had explored them together. It had been an intriguing experience to say the least, not like what he had experienced with Avi and Taya, but his motivations during those meetings had been something else altogether. Curiosity had nothing on pure lust and need. Taya and our Avi satisfied him in ways that True had not known, and likely would not have understood. He found himself wondering how True would react if she knew. It might be wise to simply tell her, get anything surprising out in the open. But no. He had no desire to confuse the matters between them any further. They had a mission for True. It was best that he focused on that. He looked around the now empty landing pad. The Co-op's Folly had left 2 hours ago with Lana Benico on board. The blonde Sith had agreed to go, as a matter of faith if nothing else. She still hoped to maintain a positive relationship with the survivors, and accepted when Colonel Capiston suggested that it was for the best that she didn't see what type of ship took the keys to their new home. A wise move, considering how the realization that they had not been working with the real Lana all these months. Captain Cooper had not been entirely happy with the decision. He had hoped to stay, to have a chance to speak with his daughter. True, like her brother, had remained distant with their father since he had chosen to remarry. Coop had been interested in clearing the air. Yet, again, duty had come before personal desire. He was one of only 2 people outside of the survivors who knew the location of this base. It had kept the group safe for decades, and that security needed to be maintained. Finn watched as the stolen heart broke through the clouds, True's true heart on his tail. Both armed courier ships flew in perfect unison, the result of second vessel being slave to the first. Again, the survivors were taking no chances. Shira looked back at the base, reaching out with the force. Finn almost rolled his eyes. Seriously. Shira picked up on his annoyance and shrugged. If the Sith are going to try anything, she said, now would be the time, once those keys are off-planet and in hyperspace. Finn nodded, though he still thought she was being paranoid. The Sith had their orders. No one would interfere with the transfer. Avi had ordered them to stand down and accept injections to block their force abilities. Again, she proved herself an ally, despite the others' treatment. So far, the alliance was holding. He intended to keep it that way. The true heart came down closest to them, its engines and repulsor lifts flaring expertly as the ship whirled around and touched down gently on the hardened surface. For the briefest of moments, there was no sound, only the slight ticking of heat from the vessel's engines as True and Mox went through their landing checklist. Finally, the boarding ramp hissed steam as it lowered. The sound of boots on the deck drew Finn's attention. True Halcyon, clad in her flight suit and leather jacket, emerged from the ship, her hair pulled back into a sloppy ponytail, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "Morning, all," she called out. Finn smiled. "Morning, True," he said with a slight bow. "Welcome to Survivor Base." The former Jedi Padawan, turned smuggler, looked around, taking in the emptiness of the world around them. "Nice little out-of-the-way garden spot," she murmured. "Can't see why you are not interested in inviting guests." Finn chuckled. True had always tried to remain upbeat, even in the darkest of places. During their Padawan Pack days, lost in the lower levels of Coruscant, she had been a light that had kept them all from falling too deep into the darkness that seemed to be creeping out of every shadow. He hated to admit it, but he was grateful she was here. At least she didn't look at him like he had failed Master Jazz. Her hair was longer than he remembered, her flight suit having more patches than suit, but that was True's way too. She didn't discard something that still had use, in that she was still very Jedi-like, despite leaving the order He blinked and pointed at her belt. "You are wearing a lightsaber." His old friend chuckled, gently brushing her fingers over the black and silver hilt. "Can't hide anything from you, can I?" she said jovially. Finn frowned slightly. "I thought you wanted nothing to do with the order, after Coruscant." Again, she shrugged. "The Force is still a part of me," she reminded him, "after everything that has happened. Revan, the Zackle." She gave him a pained look. "I would be a fool not to revisit my strengths." It was then that her co-pilot emerged. Mox de Vernalia, like True, had also been a Padawan once. Once he had been a healer, and a good one, possibly destined to become a great one. He had not been able to walk that path, not after the temple, not after the darkness of the underbelly of Coruscant. Finn looked at the Bothan smuggler. He didn't look well. His cream-colored fur with the yellow V-shaped markings looked matted, his violet-colored eyes downcast. "Hey, Finn," he said under his breath. "Been a while." Finn said nothing, but he was concerned. Even his old friend's voice lacked the boisterous sound it once had. "Hey, Mox," Shira said before he could reply, her brow furrowing slightly. "You, okay?" "Been a little under the weather is all," he answered, his fur rippling, a Bothan sign of discomfort. Finn glanced over. What was that about, he wondered. Why would Mox be in any discomfort here? Maybe you should let Dr. Tag take a look at you, he offered. Is nothing, the Bothan answered. You sure? He nodded, and looked away, not meeting Finn or Shira's gaze. Finn looked at Shira, who looked back. She had picked up on it too. We just finished running a load of Daka trees to Mos Trafa, True said, drawing their attention back to her. Apparently, Bothans are highly allergic to the pollen. She gave the two Jedi a wry smile. Moxie has not been feeling too well since. The heart's atmospheric filters have mostly cleared out the ship's air supply, but some pollen still remains. Hasn't been a very good experience, has it, Moxie? The Bothan shook his head no, and tried a weak toothy grin. It hasn't been fun at all, True, he replied. Finn nodded, but still felt that he was missing something. He also noticed that Mox was wearing a lightsaber too. Curious. I understand you have a job for us, True said, drawing his eyes back to her. Some Sith toys that need to be locked away forever. Shira nodded. The galaxy will be a better place when these things are no longer in it. When you reach the Vault world, you should speak with the Guardians, see if they can come up with some way to destroy them. Even something that is dangerous has some knowledge, True replied. You do remember that lesson, right, Shira? The masters always preached. Some knowledge is not worth the risk, the beast woman snapped back. I saw what one of these keys were capable of. I can only imagine what they can do now that they have all been brought together. If True was worried, she didn't show it. She simply shrugged and laughed. I will pass along the suggestion, though I doubt the Guardians will listen. She looked again at Finn. He was surprised that she had not commented on his Sith eyes. Most Jedi would be disturbed by it. Then again, she had spent the last few days traveling with Tara Valentine. She might have mentioned it, prepared her for the changes he had gone through. True's expression turned serious. I'm told that you have all been working closely with Darth Avaryss, that she is the reason you found these things in the first place. Finn nodded. She warned us of their capabilities, and that the Zakuul were looking for them. If not for her aid, they may have fallen into Arkin's hands before we had the chance to intercept them. Sounds like it was a good thing she teamed up with you guys. The smuggler mused. Nice to see that she is actually trying to do some good. We ran into each other quite a few times after the Cold War went hot. Did I ever tell you what happened on Esrat? She was sent to kill some child priests who... I'm sure that there will be plenty of time for war stories. Finn cut her off. He didn't need or want to hear what atrocities that Avi's master had made her do. She was better. She was trying to be better. I'm going to make her better. Mox looked up. For the first time, some fire shone in his violet eyes. Are you sure it was a good idea, putting powerful dark side artifacts in the hands of a Sith Lord? We have a deal in place, Finn assured him. Avi promised not to touch the artifacts. They belong to the Jedi, and she gets to pass along the story that they hers, to intimidate her rivals. True stroked her chin. Not bad, actually, and Avi's actually playing nice. She had never seemed interested in that during our previous run-ins, did she, Moxie? The Bothan shook his head. Avi's with us, Finn assured them. She is as committed as the rest of the survivors to stop the Zakuul. Isn't that right, Shira? The beast woman didn't respond. Her lip was curled, if not into a frown. Something close to it. Finn's temper flared. Did she have to be so bloody suspicious? Avi had done nothing to warrant it. Yes, she had tricked her way into the survivors, but she had fought bravely since. She had saved many lives. Why couldn't Shira accept that? Why? We are having the artifacts prepped for transport now, Shira informed his two friends. As for Avi and her allies, they are confined to the base, and all the Force wielders among them are under the effect of suppressor drugs. At Avi's order, Finn added, once again proving that she is committed to our alliance. Shira shot him a dirty look. Why? Someone needed to defend Avi. Had she not earned their trust? Why was everyone being so bloody paranoid? The sooner we get the keys off this world, the better, Shira said. True gave her an eager look. We're happy to help, aren't we, Moxie? True, he said. I don't think we should be so quick to leave. the reverse power coupling is acting up again, not to mention the hyperdrive motivator. We stalled out twice in the last week. Remember when we left Nantoon? It took us half a day to get underway again. The Bothan scowled. I don't like the thought of being stalled out in the middle of nowhere with a cache of dark side artifacts on board. That is just asking for trouble. Shira looked at True. You have been having ship trouble. Sure, but why didn't you let us know? Because it wasn't serious. The woman answered defensively, my ship and my choice. Besides, you guys have a full repair crew here. They could take a look before we start out again. Shira growled. That could take hours. It is better than having them drop out of hyperspace who knows where, Finn reminded her. So they spend a few hours here while the true heart gets checked over. What is the problem? Shira glared at him. He knew what her answer would be. That was a few more hours that Avi and the other Sith would need to be kept on the suppressors, and yet another chance for the Sith to come to reconsider the deal. It was risky, sure, but again, all that worry was because they weren't sure where Avi's true loyalties were. Finn almost cursed. Damn them. Damn all the survivors. Couldn't they just have a little faith? Avi wouldn't lie to him. Why couldn't they just trust him? Shira snarled and shook her head. Seems like we have no choice. True chuckled, her eyes sparkling mischievously. You can still load the cargo. Our hold is secure. In a few hours, we will be underway, and you and Avi can get back to, well, whatever it is you have been doing, right, Finn? Finn pursed his lips. He didn't like what she was implying. Had she picked up on the fact that he and Avi were more than just colleagues? Had Tara told her? That wasn't the woman's information to share. He sighed and took a deep breath, letting it out slowly, and with it, his anger. He forced a smile. A few hours, he said, the techs will get to work on the true heart, and you two can breathe something better than recycled ship's air. He looked at Mox. You might even get a chance to get over your allergies. The Bothan gave him a toothy, grateful grin. Finn nodded. Fine. They could do this. It would work. The three made for the base, True already chatting contentedly about her most recent missions. Mox following in their wake. Shira remained where she was. Tara Valentine came up to her, likely wondering what the hold-up was in getting the keys out of here. Finn pursed his lips. He could only imagine the complaints Shira would have. Complaints that Tara would take to Chris. He almost cursed. Damn her, he thought, his thoughts turning to Avi and her nickname for his old friend. Damn the mongrel. Couldn't she just let things play out as they needed? Was that so criffin' hard? Time passed slowly that day, almost too slowly. Finn had supervised the loading of the keys. The reinforced security case holding them would stop a raging transition if it tried to crack it. Finn gave the codes to Mox, who promised to give them to True. With that, the job was done. The keys were as good as gone. Finn took one last look at the true heart. Even from here, he could sense the keys, hear their song through his connection to Avi. His eyes narrowed. He would be more than grateful when they were gone for good. In the meantime, they needed to wait until the repair crew finished its work on the heart's hyperdrive and power systems. Finn had offered to join his old allies for a meal, but only Mox accepted. True was feeling tired and decided to get some sleep in the base. They had just spent almost 19 hours without rest. She had sought out one of the empty rooms. Given the survivors' losses on Tatooine, she had not had trouble finding one. Finn was surprised no one was blaming him for that loss as well, despite the fact that it had been Chris' decision. He tried not to think about it, just let it go. It did no good dwelling on mistakes, his or other people's. So it was that the Finn and the Bothan headed to the mess hall. Mox remained troubled. Finn didn't need the Force to realize that. He found himself hoping that his old friend would open up now that they were alone. They were both Padawan pack after all. After that, surviving in the dark, they had learned to trust each other. The mess had been almost crowded that afternoon. He spotted Gilly and Chris leaving together, and took that as a hopeful sign. Saving the Major had been one of the best things he had done lately, and he didn't regret for a moment the choice he had made. It had not only saved the old soldier, but had brought him and Avi together, torn down the last of the walls between them. Yes, it had reopened the darkness within him, but that was okay. He could handle it. Yes, he was fine. We heard stories from Tara Valentine. Finn blinked, drawn back by the Bothan's words. Mox gave him a concerned look. She told us that you and Avaryss were together. Finn's brow furrowed. What of it? The Bothan's fur rippled. Are you sure that is a good idea? Finn felt his temper rise again. Why was everyone asking him that? Couldn't they keep their damn opinions to themselves? You don't understand, he began. Avi, she showed me a part of myself that I didn't know existed. Mox made a face. I'm sure she showed you some interesting parts too. Finn's hands curled into fists. Was everyone going to judge him today? This is the smart move. If we are together, I can check her darker tendencies. Her fellow Sith are going to believe she has the keys. She can use that belief to ascend to the Sith throne. Mox snorted. Is Avaryss as Empress something the galaxy needs? The Bothan asked. We know her. I know her. And for that you are going to risk living among Sith. Risk succumbing to the dark side. The Bothan paused. Or is that something that has already happened? That stopped Finn in his tracks. Finn glared at his old friend. The Bothan gave him a sad look. I can feel your anger, old friend. It is almost ready to explode out of you. Hearing that, Finn took a shuddering breath and counted to 10. Mox was not wrong. Behind them they heard laughter. Finn looked over to see Zen eating with Barrack Lilas. The officer had removed his helmet, showing a sweaty pale face. Zen noticed Finn's look and smiled at him, a cold predatory grin. He looked away, his eyes once again finding Mox. The Bothan shook his head. Finn frowned. Zen and Mox had been close once. As younglings they had been drawn to each other, or rather, Mox had gravitated towards her. After the fall of the temple, he had left, and she had stayed, becoming Side Darbin's apprentice. They both knew how that apprenticeship had turned out. When they had all met again for the first time during the battle against Darth Tarek, Zen had been something different. They had barely recognized her. Mox sighed. Finn, we are friends, and I don't want to see you end up like her. I'm not going to let this change me, Finn promised. The Bothan showed his teeth. It already has. If you do go to the Empire, the Sith hardliners are not simply going to fall in line because Avaryss says, boo. You will have to do things. Those things will change you. Maybe you will come think that Avi was right, and her ways are better. The Bothan growled. What will you become then? Finn Shadowstone. Before he could answer, he felt a presence coming rushing up, searching for him. He smiled. Hello, Bliss. The little girl smiled as she came to a stop, almost bouncing and out of breath. Master Finn, Dr. Tag wants to speak with you. He nodded and rose. Mox gave the child an arched look. Finn gestured the girl forward. Mox de Vernalia, meet Bliss, Avaryss' daughter. The Bothan blinked and looked at Finn. Daughter. Is she? I'm Tank-born, the girl clarified without hesitation. Master Finn is not my father. She looked up at him with hopeful eyes, far more hopeful than Sith eyes should have been. No, he was not her father. But he sensed that she wished he might want the job. I could teach her, he thought. Show her a better way. He excused himself from his old friend, grateful for the girl's interruption. He didn't like to think about what was being said. Mox had made some fair points. He was trying not to dwell on them. It won't matter soon, he realized. Once the keys were gone, Avi would not be tempted. He would not be tempted. He nodded. Everything would return to normal. He looked down at the little girl. I'm surprised to find you up and about, he said. I was bored in my room. Nothing to do, but talk to Jeer. Dr. Tag is letting me help run messages. Finn nodded. That did sound something like Proxy would do. They had comms, but making a little girl feel important was her style. Where is your brother? He asked. Bliss made a face. Sulking, she answered. He doesn't like being cut off from the Force, wasn't happy when he woke up dead into it. That wasn't my fault, Finn replied. She smiled happily. I know, Master Finn. She reached out and took his hand. He was grateful for the support. The girl beamed up at him. I know. As expected, it took the team hours to locate the issues in the True Heart's power system, and to isolate the issue in the ship's hyperdrive. Finn had still not been able to rest. He meditated for an hour, which helped, but for the most part he simply tried to lose himself in his work. He had wanted to go see Avi, check on her, but it seemed that the day itself was conspiring against him. Dr. Tagg had had an idea of how to treat his eyes, return them to their previous state. Finn had agreed to the treatment after today's work was done, and the keys safely away. Chris had then pulled him away to discuss the new recruits that he was looking to bring in, the young men and women needed to replace their recent losses. Finn was surprised that Chris would trust him with that, considering recent events. Again, he did his best to hide his slowly developing disdain for the old soldier. After that, Timon had stopped him. The Padawan had wanted him to let Zay out of her room so that the two could train. Finn had not thought that a good idea, not while the girl's powers were being suppressed. Timon had been insistent. He didn't like the fact that Finn was treating the girl so suspiciously. Finn had nearly blown up at his student. He didn't have time for the half-blood's adolescent crushes. Yet, before he said anything, reconsidered. Zay trusted Timon. He agreed, but said the two should keep any training light, and also asked if the boy could find out anything more about the events on board the ship that had taken the girl from Nar Shaddaa. TEM had been unsure about pushing such a discussion. He didn't want to make Zay revisit bad memories of her kidnapping. Finn had insisted he do so anyway, and that the boy should report back anything he found odd. Odd how? The young half-blood asked. Anything, Finn had answered, no matter how small. TEM had seemed unsure, but agreed to his teacher's request. Finn had nodded, pleased. At least someone around here trusted his judgment. By the time the True Heart was ready to go, the sun was getting low. Chris had sent Tara Valentine off on another off-world errand, so the Jedi ship had the landing pad to itself. Master Anno, Shira, and the Colonel had followed Finn, True, and Mox back to the pad. They had likely wanted to watch as the keys were finally moved beyond the reach of their Sith allies. Allies, Colonel? Finn wanted to shout. Allies. We do owe them a bit of trust, don't we? Just outside of camp, Timon and Zay sparred, their training blades crackling in the fading light. Finn could hear Zay singing as the two young people danced back and forth. She, at least, was making the best of a tough situation. True was practically bouncing with excitement. She seemed more than eager to be underway. Her nap earlier leaving the former Jedi turned smuggler with a healthy glow. Mock sniffled, likely still suffering from allergic misery. True smiled at Finn. The cargo has been received and is ready for transport, she said jovially. We should reach our destination in a few days. Take your time, Shira advised. Make sure no one is tracking you. Of course, True answered with a smirk. I do know my job, Master Shira. She turned to Finn, her lips curling into a sly smile. It has been good seeing you, Finn. Maybe next time we can revisit a few things. Maybe, he said coolly. And try to get some rest. You look tired. He nodded. When this was over, he was going to seek out Avi, reassure her everything was fine, and comfort her if she needed. He could only imagine how annoyed she had been at being so confined these last 2 days. Plus, after she had been comforted, he would be able to sleep. She always knew how to help him find rest. True turned to her partner. Mox, fire up the converters. I want to be off this rock in 10. True, the Bothan replied, plodding up the ramp. Shira looked after her, her brown eyes hopeful, no doubt grateful that the smugglers were ridding them of the keys. May the Force be with you, True Halcyon. True merely laughed. Who needs the Force, she said, ascending the ramp. I have skill. She smirked at the survivor leadership, a smirk that her father, Gabe Cooper, would have noticed was so familiar to his own. Thank you all, This has been a most profitable experience. Steam hissed as the true heart hummed to life. True glanced one last time at Finn. May the Force serve you well, she purred. The hatch sealed, and True was gone. Finn turned and made for the base. The heart's engines rumbled to life. There, job done, he thought, restraining himself from rushing. He wanted to see Avi. He needed to see her. He was tired, so very tired. She could help. He made for her quarters and found her facing the door, meditating on the floor. Her golden eyes opened as he entered. I had a feeling you were going to show, she purred. How could I not? He asked, his voice husky, hungry for what was to come. She held up her hand, stopping him from drawing closer, pulling her to her feet and into his arms. Avi sighed. Sadly, we have a small matter to deal with before things can get interesting. Finn blinked. Matter? What matter? Finn felt it then, a strange ripple through the Force. He had gotten used to the keys singing through his connection to Avi, but now the keys were leaving. The true heart was leaving the planet. He blinked. What? His dream friend gave him a sad look. You feel it, don't you? She said that you might. Finn shook his head, not understanding what he was sensing. The keys were leaving, but... He looked down at Avi. Avi was leaving too. He could sense her presence moving away, but... That was impossible. She was sitting right here. Before he could say a word, she moved. He barely registered what was happening. Snap. Crack. One moment he was standing before her, the next, he was down. He hit the wall of her quarters hard enough to leave him seeing stars. He looked up, dazed, unable to call on the Force or call for help. Avi looked at him, her expression pained. She hadn't moved, not from where she was sitting, but her arm had struck out, lashed out like a whip, or a striking serpent, far faster than any human arm could have. As he lay there, dazed, she looked down upon him. He could still hear her words, distantly. Whatever she asks of you, and your friends, accept it, Avi said, her black hair morphing, changing from black and straight to shorter, red and curly. Her eyes went from Sith yellow to a pale green, her cheeks turned pink and filled with freckles. A small grease spot appeared on her chin, then moved up to her cheek. Avi, or rather, Commander Lujane Holly, Avi's pet changeling, gave him a sad look. Betrayal, he realized. No. What was? Avi. He tried to rise, but his legs wouldn't work. His head was cloudy. He was probably concussed. Holly sighed. She really cares about you, you know, the woman said, rising, her face morphing again, turning into his. Her survivor clothes stretching enough to not look too out of place. Finn looked down at himself. She doesn't want to hurt you, Holly, as Finn said. She stepped over him, sealing him inside her room. Before she left, she gave him one last piece of advice. Do what she says, the changeling advised. She would hate to have to hurt you.